Welcome back to the Top 6 show. It's Monday night. Hit the like button, subscribe to the Football Terrace, and of course, turn on the bell notifications. We are sponsored by NordVPN, the best VPN provider in the world. Get yourself signed up now. If you haven't done so already, if you don't know too much about what a VPN is, click on the link in our description below or in the live chat feed, or you can scan the QR code that's just above Rory's Barnet right now and get yourself signed up now. We'll be talking about Nord a little later on in the show. Tonight, we're joined by Nobbins, who's a City fan, in case you're new to the Football Terrace. We've got Rory back in Arsenal today. We have United Han gracing us with her, that's Han for Hannah, gracing us, not like Han Solo, Hannah. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. We've got two Scousers on the show tonight. One is a born and bred Scouser in young Tommy. The other is made of wool, JJ, who is also a Liverpool fan. And Don is here again. He always shows up, even when Chelsea get embarrassed, just like me. I have to be here with my team win, loses, or draw. Don's here talking Chelsea as well. And there's loads to go through today. We will be talking Sancho and Ten Hag later in the show, so stay with us. Reviewing the Arsenal game yesterday as well. We're looking at Chelsea's embarrassing result against Nottingham Forest. And we will be looking at Spurs and Liverpool. Started very well this season. How good could they do? And we'll be doing final season predictions towards the end of the show. So stay with us, as I say. Make sure like buttons are hit. But first of all, panel, how are we all? We well? We good?
Good, man, yeah.
All good.
Very good. Very good.
I'm still rattled, Terry, to be honest. I mean, life-wise, I'm good, but I'm still rattled about Chelsea right now. I can't lie.
Poch out. You, Han?
Nah, definitely not. Definitely not. It's more Poch fix up, but we'll get into that anyway.
We certainly will. I wanted to start with Liverpool actually this week because it was a fantastic performance at the weekend. Absolutely blew Aston Villa away. Trent magnificent. Szoboszlai. Listen, I think there's a talk about Maddison maybe being the signing of the season, but so far, I think Szoboszlai is right up there with a shout. There's no doubt about it. But JJ, from your point of view, how impressed were you with that performance at the weekend, which I don't know if everybody was expecting?
Yeah, I mean, look, going into the game, I don't want to speak for Tom, but I was a bit apprehensive. I was like, here we go again. Aston Villa, good team. We saw, I put them in the same bracket as that Newcastle and Brighton. They're that type of team. So for me, yeah, I was worried, man. I was like, look, no Virgil van Dijk, no Konate. So we're playing Matip and Gomez at the back. Trent had a bit of a stinker against Newcastle, even though we fixed up in that second half once we got the red card. But it was set up to be kind of like a tightly contested, obviously, game. That Szoboszlai strike summed up the performance, though. It was just technical dominance all over the pitch. Like, yeah, there was a couple instances where Aston Villa could have done better with their chances, but overall, I mean, it was surprising, but it was an easy game. It was just it just seemed like an easy game. Like Joe Gomez topping the passing charts and stuff. Like it was just it was really, really comfortable. And on top of that, the likes of like McAllister, Szoboszlai were able to impose themselves on the game. We had no DM, but it didn't really matter. Everyone played really, really well. Everyone played well. Like whoever, like even the subs that came on, everyone played well. So it was a very, very, very good win, and hopefully something to build on, especially considering that we're now in the international break, and it's good to obviously go in with that win.
Tom, I mean, we obviously spoke on Saturday, but do you echo there what's been said by JJ?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I said it yesterday, I think that was the best performance we've had since the system change. In terms of, in past games, we've had moments, we've had 20-minute spells, and then we allowed the other teams to come back in. Yesterday, I think Villa had 10 minutes where it was, the stringing together a couple of attacks, but none of them were really dangerous. And then for the rest of it, it was just complete control. It was nice to finish a game with 11 men as well, instead of 10 men. So that's always an added bonus. But no, I saw a lot of positives to take from yesterday. Even the players who came in, who hadn't been starting the season, like Curtis Jones, like Darwin Núñez, came in, gave a really good account of themselves. And this is the type of thing you want to see. This is the type of thing that Liverpool really lacked in past years. Quality depth. The drop in quality when we have to maybe take out a Jota or take out a Gakpo and bring someone else in, or take out, a Thiago and bring someone else in, or take out a Konate and bring someone else in. That drop hasn't been there. The team has held the level which is the most important thing to have when you're wanting to have a successful season. That's what done us in last year. The drop in quality when you'd go from Thiago to Henderson, it was light and day. I mean, the drop in quality from Henderson to Szoboszlai is light and day anyway. So I'm just really happy with how we started this season, and it's a very strong base to build off of, and it's, to be honest, a lot better than I thought we would do to start the season.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about it as well from a Liverpool perspective, it's like we weren't, as Liverpool fans as a whole, we weren't happy with how we started the season. We weren't happy with the performances anyway. But to look at it now, 10 points out of a possible 12, you can't really complain. And now we're in the midst now of, or do I mean we're right up there with the top dogs or whoever's like to kind of got maximum points in terms of, I think that's City, but then also I think Newcastle got on 10 points as well. So, and they've all had really, really good starts. And us as fans, we're still not satisfied with the performances. This is the first game that, you know, we're completely kind of like content with what Liverpool have obviously provided. So if this is just to start, and hopefully we can still keep getting these results and we peak at the right time, you don't know what could happen, man. You actually just don't know what could happen. But look, I'm gonna stave off the predictions at this moment in time. But yeah, good, man. Happy from a Liverpool perspective.
Does anybody think Liverpool fans, and again, Liverpool fans, this isn't my opinion, this is a question. I know that questions for Liverpool fans can be hard to digest at times. Do you think Liverpool fans, maybe anyone on the panel think maybe they're getting a little bit ahead of themselves? We saw Newcastle tearing them apart. We saw up until really the second half, we saw Bournemouth give it a good go in the first 30 minutes at Anfield. Does there need to be more tests before people start to believe in this Liverpool team being back to their very best?
I think if I was a Liverpool fan, my only potential query and like maybe fear might be if you come up against a better team who's more likely to try to control the midfield battle against you, is that maybe where your lack of, an out-and-out defensive midfielder who you'd want starting for you comes into play? I don't know the answer to that, but as I understand it, Endo is your only out-and-out sort of senior defensive midfielder. I understand Bajcetic is another option there, but he's more of a youth player. So I just wonder, I believe your midfield three against Villa was Jones, McAllister and Szoboszlai, wasn't it? So I guess the only question would be against, I know these are the big boys, but, against someone like an Arsenal or, a City, someone who will take that midfield battle to you rather than Villa, who will just expose themselves to their high line. Is that maybe an issue, or do you not see it being that much of an issue?
I think it's always going to be an issue. I think it will be an issue throughout the season. It's how we try and combat it in other ways. So the big thing for us this season, I feel, in the games against the Arsenal or the City or not United, but against them, against Tottenham or something, would be, can we get Thiago fit for those games? If we can get Thiago fit, then you've got that option who can almost do the work of two men. He's going to last about 15 games this season, Thiago. That's the risk you got to take. You've got to try and make sure you get them 15 games at the right points, because he can help negate the lack of a DM better than any other option we've got, unless Stefan Bajcetic takes another major leap in his development, which I can't expect, coming off the back of an injury. But it's always going to be a concern, especially when you're going up against the likes of a Rodri or a Rice or a Basuma who starts the season on fire in that role. They're always going to have that physical edge to the midfield that we don't have. So it's just going to be about how we adapt and counter that on a technical level, basically.
Yeah, how do you feel about your centre-backs, JJ? How do you feel about that situation? Because if Matip comes in, Joe Gomez, listen, as a Liverpool fan, I wouldn't trust those guys. So how do you feel about the depth at the back?
Them as a pairing, I wouldn't trust, and Gomez, I wouldn't trust because what he done in last season. Matip, for the majority of last season, was solid, and for me, was that started last season. I wanted him to start ahead of Konate. I was like, the partnership is Virgil van Dijk and Matip. So I know when Matip's fit, when Matip can play, he offers us something in terms of his ability on the ball, his ability to drive into midfield and offer another option. Now, of course, Konate right now is the starter with Van Dijk, but they're still to come back. And if they can keep up the performances that they had on the weekend, then we're content in terms of defensively. I think we're fine. I think to add to what Tom was saying as well, it depends on what Liverpool are trying to do. I don't think Liverpool are going to try and win the midfield battle in terms of getting on the ball and dominate possession. I think the types of players we've got are looking to go and press you, and it's more off the ball. So if we can go and do that and have legs in the midfield and still go very, very direct with the likes of Nunes, Gakpo, Diaz, Salah, we don't need to dominate the midfield in the same way an Arsenal or a City dominate the midfield, where they get on the ball and start to kind of dictate play. Liverpool will be very content, and we saw it against Newcastle. We saw it very early on in the game against Chelsea as well, where we go very direct, and we had one goal, we could have had a second goal very, very quickly. So it just depends on how Liverpool decide to set up, and obviously we don't know as fans, so we're still kind of in the lurk, kind of waiting until we have that big test. And when we have that big test, then we'll be able to obviously speak on that more and see how Liverpool.
So that's the thing with me, Terry. Like JJ, you literally hit the nail on the head, man. Like Liverpool are good, and you guys are going to score goals, but I'm just not sure on your midfield, your whole setup. You haven't got a DM. I know Klopp has been making do, and obviously at Anfield, it seems like you guys know what to do there to get the 3 points. And at the back, again, that depth for me, the quality is just not there long term. It's not going to be sustainable enough, especially where you're going to try and win that Europa League as well. So that's why I need to see a little bit more to be fully convinced about Liverpool. I think you're going to have enough to get top 4, in all honesty. But I'm just looking at the squad overall, and I'm just like, there's still a few holes there, man. You've got a lack of quality really when it comes to that midfield in depth and the centre backs as well. But up top, you're going to score goals, but it's all about keeping it out of the other end as well. You know what I'm saying?
In fairness, I think in terms of Terry's question about Liverpool fans getting carried away, I'd say at the moment, most Liverpool fans I see seem quite like self-aware, like they see the same issues, particularly defensively, that the rest of us see, and aren't getting carried away. It's not like, you know, some other clubs might beat Luton and then start thinking that they're back, and then obviously they're not. So I think, I think with Liverpool, they are very like, it's good. They're conscious that attacking-wise, everyone can see the threat and the depth of threat they've got, but defensively, there might be issues along the way.
Yeah, it's what do you think, Han, about Liverpool in terms of their performances this year and their ability to challenge potentially? Because there are a lot of Liverpool fans on this line, Gravenberch, on deadline day saying we will challenge for the league this year. Do you think with the performances you've seen that there's a genuine chance of that?
I don't think they'll win the league. Definitely not. I'd say those Liverpool fans are getting ahead of themselves. But in general, I hate to admit it, they look really good. Like, and I can see people in the chat saying they've not had tests, but you know, they've already been to Stamford Bridge, they've played Villa, they've played Newcastle away, and they won that. So I think the tests that they have had, they've kind of proved. I mean, again, it's like any fans getting excited or feeling a certain way. It's still so early on in the season. It's still hard to tell where things are going to go. And like many squads with Liverpool, you know, I would never want this, but a few injuries, and again, they're kind of in a position where it could look where they're not going to have that depth. So I think they should be happy, but I don't think they should be saying that they're going to win the league, because to answer your question, I don't think anyone's chasing City.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll be getting onto that later. Look, I think Liverpool have looked good, just in my opinion. I think the game at the weekend was the first time in a long while I've seen you play where you're not leaking opportunities and chances, and you looked a lot stronger. And I think I'm intrigued to see how you're going to use Gravenberch. I also think when it comes to Liverpool, there is talk that there's going to be a new £200 million bid that comes in the next 48 hours. And I know Liverpool's public stance is we are not selling him. But the fact that the Saudi club are not stepping away and they're continuing to bid must mean they've got an ounce of encouragement they can get this done. I'm at a point now where I think I'm 80% sure Mohamed Salah is going to stay as well. But no, Liverpool look good. Liverpool look good to me. And I think that they might, again, I've said all along, you're making Champions League positions. There were a few people talking about you guys could be done and finished out here when you didn't get Caicedo and Lavia. And even without them, I still felt you'd make it into the top 4 teams this year, because you do have Klopp, you do have Salah, you do have the best goalkeeper in the league. You've got a lot of good players, and Darwin Núñez has started this season, and he looks, I know he didn't actually score at the weekend, but the goal that hit the post and hit the goal he didn't win in. Yeah, that was him.
Mike catching back, yeah.
Yeah, it's a cash, right? It was the Everton game where that happened with Pickford's head. But he looks dangerous this year, Darwin. And I think if you've got Salah that can score goals, if you suddenly add another player to your front three that can also start scoring goals, 20 to 25 league goals, like when you had Mane and Salah both scoring lots, again, that changes your ability to be a top 4 contender, maybe pushes you into that title race if he can maintain what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, because there's a potent player. He's not the best link-up play, not the best hold-up play, but just play him to his strengths. Knock that ball over the top and let him shoot a goal, and I'm sure he's going to score a lot more indeed. Terry, stop with add another player. I have no idea what you mean. So I read it.
I think he means off front. We don't need another attacker if you don't sell Salah, because you've got Salah, Jota, Diaz, Gakpo, Nunes. I think I'd love to have another one who can get you 25, 30. But for me, I'm looking at Jota has shown in the past he can get 20 when he's fit.
Yeah.
Diaz can get 10. Gakpo, we don't know what the ceiling is for Gakpo.
No, I understand that. I'm just stating if this guy can keep on at this rate, I reckon he can score 20 league goals. If you've got him and Mo Salah both doing that, plus the other guys contributing, you're gonna be very, very potent indeed. There's no doubt about it. Tottenham as well. There's a lot of gas around Tottenham right now, Rory. A lot. Spurs fans they've got their club back. They battered Burnley, who I have to say, by the way, at the minute with Burnley, I don't think they're crap. They're just so naive. They're trying to play their championship brand of football in the Premier League, and it has been absolutely ripped apart. I think maybe we're seeing, Frank Lampard did well in the championship first season, come to the Prem too early. Gerrard was doing well up in Scotland where it's easy, but came to the Premier League too early. Maybe Vincent Kompany is just in the Premier League too soon in his career, but Burnley have been getting slapped in their games. However, taking nothing away from Tottenham, I know I am going to go to you first, Rory, as their local rival. They do look very good right now.
Yeah, they look annoyingly good. I've been trying to play down, how they've been playing, but I think, like, logically, they do look like a good footballing side at the moment. I thought Son looked great through the middle, which could be big for them if they can make that work, because I do still think Richarlison's just not a goal scorer, or he's not for Tottenham. But if they can figure out a way of putting Son down the middle, maybe bring Brennan Johnson on the left-hand side, who I'm a massive fan of, the attack's going to be there. And I think the only thing that could really unravel them is if they pick up a couple of injuries in the midfield and defence. I don't think they've got a lot of depth there. But for now, yeah, they're one of the informed teams, and you probably don't want to play them. So fair play to Ange, who is annoyingly likeable as well. And yeah, fair play to them.
Don, the Spurs fans getting a bit ahead of themselves. I've heard a few rivals say online that it's because they're playing with very little pressure. There was no expectations. As soon as that expectation rises, they'll be back to being Tottenham. Or are they genuinely as good as they look?
They are, man. Listen, when I watched them in pre-season, they were playing exactly how they're playing now. My manager can take tips from this guy. He's not dropped his principles. He's gone in there and said, listen, I'm going to play how I want to play. I've got some of the players that can actually suit the style of play that I want to implement. So I'm going to stick to that. So I'm not seeing any Spurs fans saying that they're going to win the league or even get top 4. I think they're just happy now that they've left that dead Conte ball. Do you know what I mean? That dead Mourinho ball, and they're actually seeing something that they can sort of build from and see what they can get from the season. A lot of them weren't happy that they're out of that cup that they lost, was it last week against Fulham? I'm not really seeing many Spurs fans getting carried away, man. I think they're just happy now that they're seeing a big change that they've been asking for a long time. Do you know what I mean? And I think they've all finally sort of humbled themselves, gone back to their habitat, rather than getting the glamorous managers, have gone back to just someone that's sort of up and coming, unproven, got a point to prove, and can build something. So I think Spurs are looking good, man. They're looking good right now. So I don't see any. I'm not seeing any of them getting too carried away.
The thing is, I think they will lose games this season, and they might lose games heavily this season, because I think defensively they do look at times quite easy to get through. But I think because they're playing a nice brand of football, that will give Ange a lot more time. The fans will have a lot more patience with him, because the football's so much nicer to watch for them, and I think that would be quite a big thing going forwards, compared to what they were playing like under Conte.
I think the big thing will be how long they defend. But when they play the likes of City, Arsenal, Liverpool, these teams that have such good attackers, I think that they will have a good season, Tottenham. But in those games, I look at that defence. I look at the idea of Pedro Porro inverting, and then you're putting an awful lot of pressure on Romero to cover 2 roles. And we know that Romero was a very good defender, but at some points he's a bit rash. I think with Tottenham, the defences are very much a confidence defence. And they are, like you said, they are going to suffer a couple of heavy defeats this year. It's how well that team keeps the confidence after those results. Because if they're one of them ones who can just take it on the chin and move on next week, then they'll be in for a really good season. But the worry is, it'll be one of those ones where they suffer a big defeat and they go, oh, I'm going to wallow in myself for a couple of weeks now. And then it's a back-to-back loss or a draw. And then it starts piling up and then they have to dig themselves out again.
Tom, I disagree that they're a confidence defense. I think it's just I think they've improved their quality back there. You know, you've got Udogie there, really comfortable on the ball at left back. What's the centre back? Is it Van der Beek? Van der Beek as well. He's playing well. Van der Ven even. He's playing really well as well. I don't think it's a confidence thing. I just think that Ange has actually identified players that can play how he wants them to play. Because when they're getting pressed, these guys are beating presses, man, for fun. It's good. It's weird to watch. It's weird to watch Spurs doing this.
But it reminds me of, maybe not the first season, but it reminds me of the football under Poch at Tottenham. And look, I said at the weekend, I think they do look good. I think they look genuinely good. I think they have if they keep building from this, they're going to have a chance of making the top 5. I think we've got to get used to saying top 5 because that's where a Champions League position is going to be. I'm really intrigued to see what happens when the pressure mounts, because even the most diehard Spurs fan would admit when the pressure is on them as a football club, more than anyone else in the top 6, they crumble far more than, generally speaking, over the course of the last 10 to 20 years, Tottenham are known as Bottle Job FC. So there's still a lot of acid tests and things for them to go. But I also think that's the start in the season with everybody kind of writing them off. And I tweeted that I think Big Ange might end up making a few of us, including myself, look a little bit silly if this football continues. But part of that is because everyone wrote them off and they're playing with freedom. I think if you look at Arsenal last season compared to the start of this campaign, there was almost no expectation on Arsenal last year. And the team played with the freedom where I think the opening 4 games this year, there's almost been an element of we're expected to win these games now, as opposed to everyone writing us off. And I think mindset-wise, things can be a little bit different. So there's a long way for Spurs to go. But, you know, to look at them after 4 games, I think the football looks great. And James Maddison, for years at Leicester, there was debates. Could he cut it at Arsenal? Could he play for a top team? Should he be in the England side? And again, I don't want to go over the top because it's 4 games, but we've got a great body of work of Maddison in the Premier League prior to this. I want to get your opinion on this, Hannah. James Maddison, signing of the season so far, in your opinion?
I think so. I mean, I think it's just such a massive transformation seeing him in Tottenham's midfield. Like, they just look like a different team. And I think, obviously, it's not all down to him, but such a big part of it is in that midfield now. And he just looks dangerous, like his set pieces, like he's just kind of got it all. Very smart bit of business, I think. And I think potentially, definitely top 3 signings of the season so far.
The value for money as well. How much are they getting for again?
40 million?
40, yeah.
Jesus Christ. I could do with Maddison.
You get like,
to be honest, but
is that 3 Maddisons to 1 Caicedo or something?
Yeah, I was going to say, Don, in hindsight, would you prefer to have that Spurs midfield other than your one?
Nah. I'm still not swapping my midfield for Spurs', but I wanted Maddison. When we was looking for a 10, I said I would take Maddison early on in the window, but I was surprised that we weren't looking at him. Obviously, we'll get into Chelsea after. There was a few rumours that came out the other day. Matt Law saying we weren't looking at anyone above 25, which is mad. But yeah, Maddison's a player that I wanted. I really wanted him. So it is where it is. But I wouldn't swap my midfield for theirs.
Would you want Bissouma as well or no?
I would not swap any of my midfielders for theirs. Nah. I rate Bissouma highly. He was the Caicedo before Caicedo.
Young Tom and the Spurs fans on Saturday, they've made this claim 2 weekends running. They believe, barring City, they believe Tottenham have the second best midfield in the Premier League, bar none. In terms of player for player and as a unit, they believe that Sarr with Bissouma, with Maddison creating in front of them, Spurs fans believe that no midfield in the Premier League touches them, barring City.
I mean, in terms of chemistry, they look like the ones that are. Yeah, I would probably say I wouldn't disagree with that. To be honest, they look like they've gelled already. It looks good. I've got nothing bad to say about Spurs right now. It's weird.
I don't know. I think Arsenal's are still better. I mean, Partey obviously is injured now, but I think Declan Rice, Thomas Partey, Martin Odegaard is better quality-wise.
Yeah, but that's on paper though, Tom. Let's talk about what you've seen so far in terms of how they're playing.
Okay, again though, I've got a greater body of work with what the pairing of Partey and Odegaard done last season. This season, I've got 4 games of Maddison, Basuma, and Sarr. It's not even like Basuma and Sarr played together last season because Basuma was injured for most of it. So, like you said, it's a very bright start, but I still think Arsenal's is better. City's is obviously much better. And I know they haven't started the season very well, but Newcastle's, I believe, is better. I still think Bruno Guimaraes, Sandro Tonali, and Joe Linton is a better midfield. But Tottenham's has started very, very well. That is not me discrediting what Tottenham have done. I just think that it's a little bit early to jump on the train of, it's the second best midfield in the league, because I don't think it is. And I think you've also got to look at your depth options behind that. Let's say Basuma goes down, but back to what? Højbjerg again, who you tried to shift out for the entire window and couldn't get rid of. Oliver Skip. Like, the worry with Tottenham is that should an injury-prone Basuma have another issue, or should James Maddison, need a rest or something, the drop in quality is massive there, and they can't really afford for those injuries because, as you said, as a unit, this is working very well right now. But put Skip in instead of Basuma, I think there's a lot of struggles that happen.
They've not really had a test yet, that midfield, in terms of coming up against another big midfield. I know they played United, but that was where the sort of dysfunctional United midfield with Mount in it. So it will be interesting. I mean, I think it'll be massive. I think two game weeks from now they come to the Emirates, and I think that'll be the first proper test for that midfield. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's right. Look, I think they've started brilliantly. I want to take nothing away from them, but it is only still 4 games under a new manager. They did very well against us, and that was a game of 2 halves. If, Bruno and a few others take those first half chances, the game could be different. So second half they took over and they were excellent. But even with Man United's midfield, like we've seen with Mount, we haven't seen Amrabat play yet. In terms of, we could be a different team the next time they play us. More time needs to happen. It's like with Newcastle. It's a mad stat. They've lost 3 of their opening 4 games this season. It took them 29 games last year to lose 3 matches. So again, after 4 games, you're never going to get the reaction about Newcastle like you would a Man United or an Arsenal or a Liverpool. But on paper, the regression in Newcastle so far this season is probably the worst in the league. However, you look at they've gone away to City, they've played Liverpool, which was a mad game, and then they went away to Brighton. It's a very difficult start. The only game I think they'd really kick themselves in would be the Liverpool game, because they should have won that game by 2 or 3 goals, put it to bed, and maybe we're looking at them a little bit differently. But yeah, look, I think Spurs fans have got a shout on that. But we're saying about gas. I just feel like that's what I just say. Slow down a little bit. I just say slow down and enjoy it. I sometimes don't think you need to put labels on everything that then creates the pressure, because we know that social media pressure gets into the players because all these young players are on social media. It wouldn't have mattered, to the generation that came before them, because half of them didn't really use Twitter. They weren't on it very often. I don't know. I think it's a big claim. It's a big claim. I mean, but look, they've started well. They've started well. There's some super chats here I want to go to. First one says, smash the like button, people. That is from Luke Skywalker. Of course, get that done. Let's get this stream past 1,000 likes while we're live, please. This is back to Liverpool here. This says, Martin Edwards, back to Liverpool rumours, true and thoughts. I mean, I ain't heard them, but
it came from Indy Carly. That's all you need to know. It's not going to happen.
Okay, swiftly moving on. Swift. Do you know what? I give him respect for that, Indy Carly, though. He is a complete liar, but man's get sponsors. He actually made a living. Like, he's one of those early in the nose who just made all this stuff up, but he's kind of got this weird credibility with it. It's kind of funny. This here says, hi, legends. I think we are going to see a fluid midfield with players dropping into the 6 when needed. Don't believe anyone can challenge right now, but Liverpool and Arsenal can try to make City feel like they just can't drop points. You'll never walk alone. Yeah, interesting. Spurs fans also believe that the earth is flat, is what's been said here by Jules. I know some of them certainly do. Here's a question for you. First one, I'm going to go to Hannah on this one first. Start, bench, sell. Odegaard, Bruno, Maddison.
Oh, that's hard. Sell Bruno purely because right now, before he starts getting a bit older, we'd get a lot of money for him. Start Maddison, bench Odegaard.
Nobbins as a complete neutral to this one.
Bruno's the best player there, so you start him. Odegaard's the second best player there, so you bench him, and then Maddison's the third best player there, so you sell him. 4 games does not define a player. I'm not doing it based on form.
I'm sorry, I'm picking Odegaard and Maddison over Bruno. I'm gonna be so real. If I had to pick those 3, I'm picking those 2 over him.
Why?
I think they offer more. I know Bruno puts up numbers. Terry will get into the stats in terms of creating. I'm not putting Bruno. I'm not putting him down. He is effective, but for me, Odegaard and Maddison, they're just better than him, in my opinion. I think they're better. They're both better than him.
What's that based on?
Based on in terms of how they are on the ball, based on their ability on the ball.
Sorry, what time period?
I mean, in terms of what I've seen in the league, I'd probably say they're both better.
So I'd say that Odegaard was better than Bruno last season, but aside from that, Bruno's been the better player since he joined United. Would you not agree?
Yeah, Bruno's been good for Man United, but in terms of preference, I prefer how Maddison plays and I prefer how Odegaard plays in comparison to Bruno. Bruno's really effective. He'll get you numbers, but I've got a preference. And for me, I like those sort of flary 10s like Odegaard or like a Maddison.
Yeah.
That's just my preference.
But this is coming from somebody that thinks Ruben Loftus-Cheek is a top player, but unlucky. So yeah,
Ruben was good. Ruben was good, Terry. You're downplaying how good he was.
You'd probably pick Ruben over Bruno Fernandes because of preference.
I wouldn't.
I'll say
I'll put Bruno over Ruben.
You're one of them people who, just because you like Peter Andre, thinks he's better than Michael Jackson. You're one of them ones, isn't it? Like your preference matters.
No. But the thing is, though, what you're doing right now, this is disingenuous, because let's not act like Maddison and Odegaard don't put up numbers. They put up numbers. So as much as they look better than Bruno on the ball, they're also effective as well. So for me, Bruno's a good player.
I understand.
I prefer Maddison.
I understand that. I just generally, what I don't think is a good argument is I have a preference as opposed to what the facts of the matter is. Like, I prefer how I prefer as a striker the way someone like a Carlos Tevez looked, but I know that I would pick Haaland over him. And I use because you just know he's going to score more goals. So my preference of what I prefer matters not. But I'm not saying that in this instance. But I get where you're coming from. Rory, I think I can guess who you're starting.
Yeah, I'd start Odegaard. I would bench Maddison, and I would sell Bruno. I'd say to Dobbins, if you acknowledge that Odegaard's been better for last season and arguably the start of this season, certainly looked better yesterday, then would you not start Odegaard over Bruno? If he's been for over a year, you think he's been the better player?
I'm just doing it based on who I think's the better player. My general parameters of how I define who's a better player is I need you to, in general, need to be better, in my opinion, for at least 2 years, preferably 3. And I don't think that.
But right now, if you were picking a team,
if you want to do it based on form, then sure, yeah.
Okay, good, yeah.
I suppose that question would come down to: do you think if you think Bruno's finished and never going to get back to his best, then it would make sense to sell him? I'm going to start Bruno. I'm going to bench Odegaard. I'm going to sell Maddison. I don't think any of them are. By the way, I'd love all 3 at my club. Like, I don't think any of them are bad. I all think they're very good. Bruno is very different from the other 2, so he doesn't look as good on the eye. And for some reason, his mistakes protrude a hell of a lot more than the others. But he's a creative machine. And it isn't just the assist numbers that he has, it's the level of create. Even yesterday, when we were like, a nothing game, still created more chances on the pitch than anybody else. And most big chances created in the Premier League again so far this season. And that's when he's off form. When the guy's on form, there ain't a midfielder like him barring KDB, in my opinion. JJ, who would you go with, bro?
Based on effectiveness, it's mad. I'd have to go Bruno, Odegaard, Maddison. But in terms of what I prefer, it'd probably be Odegaard, Maddison, Bruno. But I can't take away someone that's getting, especially when he was at his pomp, getting goals and assists. I think, especially in a poor United side as well, I can't negate that. So
Bruno's good, but we've been asked a question, so someone has to get sold, innit? Someone has to get sold.
No, listen, listen,
exactly.
I'm not triggered by anybody's opinion. It is what it is. It doesn't affect my player. Like, I love in the comments that people saying Bruno just spams it. Yeah, Bruno is the only person I've ever seen who can cross a ball pinpoint to somebody's head and it's called spamming. But when Trent does it, when KDB does it, when Beckham used to do it, it was called a brilliant cross. Bruno plays through balls and he just spammed it into the box. I love it.
No, Bruno's passing range is mad. Even he done a pass to I think it was to Rashford at one point yesterday. It was a mad pass the way he just switched it across. Bruno's good, man. I rate Bruno, but I prefer the other two. In all honesty.
No, I get you. I get you. What Bruno needs to help bring him alive, and I think Amrabat will help do this, is a solid midfield behind that can hold on to the possession more. His job is to get the ball. Like, I don't really want him on the ball a lot. Just give him the ball, and then he'll make those passes that break lines. He breaks lines. People don't ask what he excels at. He breaks lines better than anybody else, barring KDB, in my personal opinion. Moving on to a few more of these. Overhyped English talents. Jude Bellingham only worth 15 million. What? Oh, sorry. Jude Bellingham only worth it. Only worth
15
it.
UCLs coming to Real Madrid, I guess.
Oh, right. It's just attacking English people for no weird reason. It's a very strange thing to do today. Okay, we'll come back to the Arsenal ones in a little bit. We'll come to the Chelsea ones when we're talking about them. Big up to everyone. I think this season Klopp will rather combat the midfield as a collective instead of relying on a six to do the dirty work.
Yeah,
it's a fair point there. Honesty, thank you. Terry, it really hasn't been a good week for United. The loss, the Qataris, Sancho, Anthony, and the whole Gafite Greenwood situation. Well, the way the Gafite fans reacted is nothing to do with me and Man United fans, so I'm not passing any judgment on that at all. Anthony, I did a full video on it earlier, so go watch that. I spoke about it and said what I think should happen. We'll get on to Sancho and the loss later in the show, so make sure you're staying with the Football Terrace for that, my friend. Please either schedule later or start on time. Well, half these guys don't get it. Like Don, especially, is always late, so it's one of them ones.
I've always got to tidy things up with work, man. This is the problem.
I hear you. Not a problem. I'm going to start telling people it's 5:45, and then they'll be here on time. That's what I should start doing. Speaking of you, Don, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Chelsea. Actually, we're going to go to rivals first of all. I'm going to go to Rory first on this. Chelsea at the weekend. They had, in my opinion, one of the home games you want before an international break against one of the relegation candidates. They had more of the ball, they had more of the chances, but they just couldn't score again. It was unique, friend zone football, and they embarrassingly lose 1-0 to Forest at home. What's going wrong there? Because a lot of Chelsea fans online that I've seen are titling videos of Chelsea crisis. We've seen Roy the boy, who comes on the terrace, saying Poch out already after 4 games. It does feel like a little bit of an early season mini crisis when you look at the reaction of their fans, Rory.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I just think it's exactly what a lot of us said, which is that they've spent £1 billion and they don't have a goal scorer. They should win that game, and if they've got at least one goal-scoring attacking player, they do win that game. So, I mean, it's worrying that, we can sit here on the Football Terrace and identify a problem, and yet their board seemingly can't. And I think that's going to be a long-term problem for them. I know Nkunku can score goals and he comes back eventually, but long-term, there's just a massive issue there. That the same as last season, they can create plenty of chances, but at home against a Nottingham Forest, you end up losing and not scoring a goal. And it's kind, it's embarrassing. What you can't, to spend £1 billion and be in this position, it's embarrassing. And
we're going to add the add-ons, are we, as well? You're going to do that? Do the same thing as Sky?
Oh, all right. Well, 980 million. It doesn't sound much better, does it?
Thank you very much. Also include how much we've sold as well. How many players we've sold this summer as well.
Well, I mean, that doesn't make it any better. They might score some goals.
Are we supposed to have 3 points onto the table for that then? Because you sold some players.
We'll talk about the game, man. Listen, I ain't gonna defend these lot today, but you lot keep cooking, man. Keep cooking.
I mean, the state of that squad for how much you spent is shocking. Let's just put it out there, plain and simple. I know you've got some injuries, so like Badiashile isn't playing, and to be honest, it's actually quite annoying to say because I really like him, but I think it's time that Thiago Silva starts to get phased out of that back line. I think you need to go back to your back four. I don't know why Pochettino done all pre-season in a back four and now has reverted to back five. That doesn't make sense. ultimately, though, that squad simply isn't good enough. It isn't. You've got an attack which is best defined by the word potential. You're just hoping potential. Potentially it's this. Potentially it's that. Potentially he does this. Your midfield, it's a lot of potential, but there's one player who's realising it in Enzo. Your defence, I think, don't get me started on Ben Chilwell. I do not understand what Ben Chilwell is doing. You could ask some of the best minds in football. They wouldn't understand what Ben Chilwell's role is. You've got £300 million worth of attacking talent on the bench, and Ben Chilwell's playing left wing. Doesn't make sense. And ultimately,
Tom, it's false left back. It's false left back. That's all it is.
Sorry, yeah, I forgot that. And ultimately, the big thing that I pointed out, the goalkeeping situation, you should have just spent some of the money on getting a top-class goalkeeper, because ultimately, having a top-class goalkeeper helps teams more often than not. I said it. Robert Sanchez was Brighton's second-choice keeper last season. I don't care if he fell out with De Zerbi or not. If he was that good, De Zerbi would have just appeased him. But he wasn't, so he was dropped for Jason Steele, who now can't even get a game for Brighton. And you're expecting him to come into £1 billion squad and be the keeper to rely on. It just doesn't work. That Chelsea squad is not good enough. The manager needs to figure it out. I don't know whether he's trying to do what Potter done, which is try and play everyone and keep everyone happy sort of thing. Nice happy boat. No, you're going to have to rock the boat. You're going to have to upset some people, because that squad is not good enough. You have to play the best 11. Whether that means Ben Chilwell has to hold bench despite being vice captain. Tough, get better, and then maybe you'll play. That's what's got to happen, though, because what you're doing right now doesn't work, and it's exposing the weaknesses of your players.
You're right, Tom.
There's a comment here for you, Don, that says, I'm not going to... The guy called you a little bit of a name. I'm going to ignore that. I think he's only joking, but he says, Don, call out the ownership. They are buying kids. We aren't getting nowhere. There's a report, and you mentioned it backstage, that came out that the club this summer said it will not sign players under the age or over the age of 25. You haven't bought a prolific striker. You don't have a top-class goalkeeper. I know there's talk of giving the manager time, but to lose 2 of your opening 4 games, results do have to start coming in, because your fans are jaded because of last season. If you keep losing these matches, Poch's not just going to find himself in the same situation that Graham Potter was in. And do you think the ownership's policy of not signing people over 25 could hurt you? You're on mute, bro.
Right now, I'm not... Listen, I don't know why people are trying to bring the owners into this. Yes, the owners should be signing a little bit more experience. That's fine. We all agree on that, yeah? But Poch has more than enough right now to cook a meal. This guy is playing people out of position. Like Tom said, he's playing Ben Chilwell as a left winger, right? This is the equivalent of Klopp playing Robertson at left wing. It makes no sense. You're playing Gallagher in the pivot and playing Enzo as a 10. It makes no sense. The guy is completely diverted from what he was doing in pre-season. Like I said, Terry, I was seeing Ange cooking something up. He's stuck to his principles. He's carried on doing the same thing. And look at Spurs. They're playing really well and they're getting the results. Poch, he's gone completely differently to what he was doing. Levi Cole wasn't playing at left back in pre-season. Now he's playing at left back all of a sudden. Ben Chilwell's playing at left wing. I got it against Liverpool because, Trent is an attacking threat. He was there to stop Trent. And we didn't have Caicedo at that point. We didn't have Lavia at that point. But now you're playing that same you're playing that same personnel against Luton, up against West Ham away, up against Forest at home. This is not the Poch that I know. This is out of character, Terry. Like, the guy's being a little bit reserved. He's not being brave enough. It's like he's got the handbrake up at the moment, and it's really annoying. These are basic things that he's doing wrong. Do you know what I mean? And the big problem, like Tom said, is Ben Chilwell is our vice captain. Do you get it? He's our vice captain right now. And if Reece James isn't available, it seems like the guy has to play. He has to play. So after the international break, this guy needs to go back to basics, man. Obviously, we're not great in terms of our firing power. Everyone can see that Jackson's a bit raw. He's a bit snappy in front of goal. But in terms of the chances that we're creating for this guy, we're feeding off scraps. Everything's coming from the right. Everything just seems a bit slow. There's a lack of intensity. There's a lack of a clear plan. And that goes down to the manager, man. The other day against Forest, we could have played for another 2 hours. We wouldn't have scored. We wouldn't have scored a goal. Do you know what I mean? So he needs to go back to basics, play people in their natural position, and stop this Ben Chilwell left wing experiment, because it's not going to work any longer. And stop playing Gallagher as in a pivot with Caicedo. It makes no sense. So after the international break, I'm expecting this guy to revert back to basics, because everything that he's done in pre-season, he's left it. And I don't want to hear any excuses about, Nkuku's injured. This is the reason why this is happening. No, you've got players like Mudryk. you can play there. If you don't want to play him, play Maddison. Yeah, you've got other players you can play in that position. He's got more than enough to not be playing Ben Chilwell.
Didn't you just spend 45 million on Cole Palmer to play the Nkunku position?
Listen, this is it. Do you get it? Like the other day in the second half, he took off Ben Chilwell, he took off Gallagher, he threw on Cole Palmer and threw on Madueke. We looked a lot better, but by then it was a little bit too late. And Cole Palmer actually played a big part in that chance that Jackson missed, because he slipped the ball to Sterling. Sterling cut it back, and then Jackson, I don't know what he was doing. Do you get it?
Yeah,
so
Jackson.
This is the problem right now, Terry, man. The guy just needs to revert back to basics. Right now, it's a mess, and it feels like self-sabotage, you know? The guy's playing people out of position, and it's not helping us. None of us, there isn't a single Chelsea fan that will play Ben Chilwell as a left winger. Not a single one.
Do it is. I hear that, yeah. But when you face Chelsea, no one was saying that. Everyone was telling me Chelsea were playing great football. Wow, Chilwell being more advanced. Look how that worked. Even against on the weekend,
You said
I'm
that?
pretty sure. I remember you being there saying you played pretty well. I'm coming on the terrace after that, and it was like, nah, Chelsea were the better team in the Liverpool game.
We won that game. I didn't like that game.
Exactly. In the Luton game, again, you're saying now we played the same team. You created way more chances than Luton. Again, in Nottingham Forest, you had 21 shots to their 7. You had 21 shots to their 7.
We had 2 on target, bro. We had 2 on target.
Yeah, but then that's T.O. Jackson not tucking away his dinner. Whether that the manager can't force them to go and hit shots on target. What you can do is create a system for you guys to create chances. He's done that. Your players aren't going and finishing. The biggest worry for me with Chelsea is you spent $1.98 billion, whatever, and you didn't sign one out-and-out striker apart from Jackson.
But Jerry, the thing is,
you didn't decide to keep Lukaku or try to make that work. You just didn't do anything. You just said, you know what, get rid of that, but we're going to sign 2 wingers.
But the thing is, though, Jerry, listen, I agree with what you're saying. Yes, we do need a little bit more firepower. We need guaranteed goals, and I'm praying that in January we go and get a Tony, because he'll be good for us in this team right now. Yeah, but if you're playing people out of position, bro, you've played football. Yeah, I know the levels you've played at. Yeah, and you're playing people in the wrong position. It's going to mess up the whole system. You can see already we're not as fluid as what was looking like in pre-season. People can say, oh, it was only pre-season. That doesn't mean anything. But pre-season is a good indication of what's to come. He's completely scrapped that whole plan and gone with something completely different. Jackson's completely isolated. In pre-season, he was linking up a lot with Ivan Maddison. Even that goal that Mudryk scored against Brighton, that was a whole little link up with Jackson. Chilwell can't play like that, bro. The guy is not a winger. And I'm not blaming him. I'm blaming Poch. You're playing a guy that is not a winger as a winger. It doesn't make any sense. So right now he needs to go back to basics, bro, and then we move from there. Right now, I'm not even looking at the players like, oh, these guys aren't good enough. None of that, bro. The players should have scored the other day. Jackson should have scored the chance that he got. I'm not excusing that. But right now it's Pochettino that's making these weird decisions that's making us play the way we're playing. We need to revert back to basics.
Would you have said that if Jackson scores that goal and you win the game and then you beat Luton convincingly and you beat Liverpool? I don't think no one would say that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Terry can vouch. Even when we beat Luton, I said that first half was probably the worst half that we've played of football. Up against West Ham, I said the exact... Bro, I've been on here criticizing the team after every single game. I've been on here saying, listen, we're not looking fluid. We're moving the ball too slowly. It's not looking like the chemistry is being built either right now, because we're playing people out of position. I've been saying it after every game. Even Luton, I said, yes, in front of goal, we were clinical. But overall, I was not happy with the overall performance. I said it.
Yeah.
Do you worry about Caicedo?
So listen.
Do you worry about Caicedo?
Yeah, sorry. For me, it's just one of those ones just to finish. It's just like, if the manager's doing whatever the system is, in it, you could have just went long ball and direct. Whether you like a system or not is a different question. But if you're creating chances and you're dominating games but just can't finish, that for me is an issue with the players as opposed to the system. Because
we're not dominating games.
No, but you're saying that, but you can't have 21 shots to someone's 7 and expect not to win the game. It's not like taking shots from the halfway line. You're taking shots from inside the box and around the box.
You're missing big chance. Like, again, I would say this. I would say you did dominate the game. You had more possession. I haven't checked the stats. You had more possession, more shots, more chances created. And I think you missed at least three, what I would consider to be big chances in that game. Some of them, the defenders have got the block on you, but you got to get ahead of that. They're not very good defenders. Like this Man United team who's struggling. I know we conceded 2 early goals against them, but we then scored 3 and could have scored 5, 6, or 7. They're not hard to score against, especially away from home. At the end of the day, I get that Chilwell being in the left wing position is damaging you, but you still had the chances to win the game. And when you've got Sterling, Jackson. I think Chilwell might have missed one. When these guys are missing gilt-edged chances, I understand you can. The point is, the chances they missed, would you be confident that Mykhailo Mudryk, who is a left winger, scores them?
Yeah, but Terry, you say we had all these clear-cut chances. Apart from Jackson's miss, what other clear-cut chances did we have? You guys can tell me, what other clear-cut chances did we create?
There was one that came into the box, as I say, and when I watched it back, and I want to say it was Sterling, he just stutters before making his run to get to the ball, and he almost gets in and the defender blocks him. For me, I think as he connects with the ball, it's almost like both the defender and him connect at the same time. Cross came from the left-hand side. For me, that is a gilt-edged chance. If he hadn't hesitated, he gets there first. Bang!
I know what chance you're talking about. When Ben Chilwell,
there's lots of that, and there's a lot of hesitation in the box. But that hesitation comes from not being confident in that box, because especially Raheem Sterling, I rate him. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah,
a confident Raheem Sterling, in my opinion, gets there first and scores that goal. And I do think, look, I understand playing people in their right positions, but you guys have got to start scoring goals. And I say that because the pressure is already mounted on Poch. And I wanted to gauge this to the. I want to ask Hannah this question. Do you think it's crazy that Chelsea fans are already Poch out? And it isn't loads, but there are some significant people online that are saying this guy just isn't good enough. We want him out already. If that catches light as an opinion, how can they progress if the fan base is already starting to turn after 4 games?
Yeah, it's crazy. And I know all rival fans like to banter Chelsea for obviously the incomings basically over the summer and how much they've spent. But how can you expect a coach that's got all of these new players to instantly hit the ground running and for all of them to gel? It's kind of the same situation that we saw with Graham Potter. And I kind of feel bad for them because they've just got this whole new squad pretty much. And you can see there's no plan, but it's hard for them to, I think, be judging him so early on. I mean, it's 4 games. Like, it's people that are saying, I know Ten Hag's had another season, but Ten Hag out. Like, we're 4 games in. You need to give the team time to kind of work together. And I think the international breaks come at a good time because people are losing their heads, and I think it's way too soon.
The thing is, though, Hannah, I get that take here, but I fully agree why people are disgruntled right now. Like, the team got booed off the other day. It doesn't matter how much jelly needs to be done, how much chemistry you need to build. You will never build that with Gallagher in a pivot. You will never build that with Ben Chilwell at left wing. It just doesn't make any sense. Do you get it? He needs to go back to basics and attack people in their normal position. I promise you now, the fan base would not be pissed off if he played people in their normal position. We're playing well and we're not picking up these results because they can actually see something building. Right now, he had a plan which was working and he's completely eradicated it. But I do agree with what you guys are saying. Some of these chances should be going in. But in my opinion, we're playing a lot better in pre-season. We looked a lot more fluid. We're creating a lot more clear-cut chances. Jackson, I haven't even seen Jackson have a one-on-one yet, really. I've seen little cutbacks and him, trying to feed off scraps. But I haven't seen him have a chance like the way Son had a chance the other day. One of the goals that he had where it's played literally through the midfield. I haven't seen that yet. And this goes down to the system and the personnel that we're playing right now. It makes no sense. So in the next game, he needs to start Palmer in that 10 if he's going to play a 4-2-3-1 if Lavia is not available. And we need Enzo back in that pivot with Caicedo dictating games. Gallagher needs to get dropped. I wanted him to get sold, right? Because this guy long-term is not good enough for us, okay? And Ben Chilwell needs to go back at left back or back on the bench because it's not working. And then we can move from there. Right now, I don't even blame the fan base for being disgruntled. I'm not Poch out. That's just too much. That's overdoing it. Yeah. But you can't blame them if they can clearly see that this man is making basic errors and making just amateur decisions. It's ridiculous right now. It's completely out of character what Poch is doing.
I get that, but don't you think it's quite reactionary? Like, of course, a loss to Forest at home is really embarrassing, but you weren't saying that the week before when you beat Luton and you scored 3 goals. So to me, it's like, I'm not saying it's you specifically, but it's just the constant reactionary, like, bad performance. Like, yeah, it was a bad performance, but we're 4 games in. Say this at Christmas. Say this at Christmas when, they've had more time. And I get what you're saying about, there's certain personnel that aren't working, but again, how can you all know that for sure when it's so early on? Does that make sense? And you're saying that they look good in pre-season, and I get again the change of personnel.
I've got a theory. I want to throw this theory out to the panel. Great question. Great point, Hannah. If Tottenham hadn't started so well, would Chelsea fans be more patient?
Yes.
I'm looking at Spurs, and of course, as a United fan, I look at Spurs and it's like, oh my God. So, of course, like with the rivalry and everything, and you've had the same manager previously, of course there's going to be comparisons, but If Spurs started off rubbish, if Arsenal started off rubbish, there'd be way less kind of hype. And I think it's 4 games in. Like, how can you be making this judgment?
This is what I'm saying. I fully agree with what you guys are saying. And if Poch stuck to his principles, I would literally be saying what you're saying right now, Han. But he isn't. He's making the job harder for himself. None of you guys would have it. If he plays Zinchenko left wing, Rory would be here not having it. Yeah. If he played Shaw left wing, you guys would not be having it. If he played Mason Mount doesn't work in the pivot, you guys aren't having it. Gallagher doesn't work in the pivot.
I understand that. I understand that, but again, the conversation is people asking for him to be sacked, and for me,
that's weird.
It's just far too early. So I understand what they're disgruntled at, but that doesn't excuse wanting him out after 4 matches. And Poch is actually doing something, and I'm not Poch's biggest fan, but Poch is doing something that's never been done before, as far as I can see in the history of English football. I've never seen this turnover of players join a squad one summer. A lot of them leave the following year and even more come in. The policy be don't buy anybody over the age of 25. Also, at the same time, having the worst season in about 3 decades and being told, there you go, fix it. To be disgruntled ain't an issue. I want us to do better. But to be Poch out when he's trying to fix that mess, it's just no one's going to fix this. I can guarantee you. Yes, the managers might have had you playing better football to begin with, but there's going to be peaks and troughs. I go back 10 years ago when David Moyes took over and we didn't start very well, and Everton did, and Everton looked really good. And there was this, look how much better Everton are with Roberto Martinez, but look, we're getting worse under David Moyes. Oh, we should have got Martinez. He's a much better manager. If Everton had a bad season, I think the pressure would have been less on Moyes. Even though I think what happened is the pressure started getting exponentially worse because Everton got better after Moyes left and we got worse. And those two things, correlation, causation, they're not always caused by the same thing. And you saw this extra pressure hyped up. And I see Chelsea fans doing that now when they look at other teams, they've got better straight away. Well, that's because there's more pressure on Chelsea, in my opinion, than there is Tottenham because of what you've spent. And your players are feeling that pressure. Your manager's feeling it. Sometimes criticism's needed. But there is actually a time when fans should do what their job is and show support, criticize, but still be supportive. I think we do this. I criticize my club, but you've got to show support. They need it. Yeah. This notion that if you listen, Lee Gunnar always talks about how like the Madrid fan base can be toxic. They can be, but most of the time they're amazing. It's a balance. Some people are just angry all the time. How do you think that's going to help your team? I think people are going far too far with wanting Poch out.
They're going too far, and I completely agree with what you're saying. But Terry, I have to disagree with the point that when you said Poch is trying to fix things, it seems like he's trying to mess things up. Like I've said, it's self-sabotage what he's doing.
You're talking about his system. So you don't think Poch is trying to fix the mess that you guys were in last year?
No, he's not. He was fixing it in pre-season, but right now he's not fixing it by playing Ben Chilwell there and playing Gallagher in the pivot. It doesn't work.
Hang on. So he's failing at fixing it, but you don't think he's trying to make you better?
I think he's got the capabilities to make us better, but right now he's not showing it. He's not showing it.
But do you think he's trying to make you better?
At the moment, no. I'll be honest with you, no.
So you think Poch is actively trying to make you worse?
No, I don't think he's purposely sabotaging us. But what I'm saying is, it feels like self-sabotage. It feels like self-sabotage because he's the one that's deciding to play these players in those positions.
But you're
deciding to do that.
You're assuming, Don, that like because you were happy with preseason performances, that he was happy with them, and you're saying that he's like breaking something that was fixed. But some semi-decent performances in preseason, like. That doesn't mean it was the finished article and that was good. So maybe he has seen that there were weaknesses there, and he feels like in the Premier League he needs to address them.
I have to disagree, man, because this guy played Maddison on the wing, and Maddison scored 2 goals from the left. He got an assist from the right-hand side. He's a better option to play on the wing. If you want to play someone on the wing, play him. Don't play Ben Chilwell. I'm sorry. There's no excuses for that. No excuses. I'm not hearing nothing about that.
You're contradicting yourself because, did you say this after they won 3-0 when they were on the same lineup? Like, these are all players that were involved in that game.
I said that we were more clinical in front of goal, but I said overall I wasn't happy with it. I even said it. Me and Andrew, when we were speaking after the match reaction, I said that was probably the worst performance that we've had so far. Andrew was like, no, I think West Ham was worse. I said, no, I think Luton was worse, to be honest. I haven't been happy with the overall performances. I knew this was going to come again.
But then you get back to the root issue. Sorry. You get back to the root issue, which was what we criticised about the transfer policy. You didn't buy enough experienced players. You need more experience in that side. Your solution is to take out the experience in that side and put in youthful players, which is then going to put in
quality.
More...
I'm putting in quality. Again, you've been brought in to play young. Poch has been brought in purposely, right, to develop these young players. Okay, the young players that we've got right now have a level of quality. Maddison was playing with Burnley last season, right, in the Championship. They tried to buy him at the start of the season. They wanted to buy him again. He decided to stay at Chelsea. Why do you keep persisting with players that aren't playing well? Why? It doesn't make any sense. I don't care about the age factor right now. It is what it is right now.
But the age factor is important, though, because when you're trying to manage a tumultuous situation, you need heads that are able to withstand the media outlay, withstand the pressure that the media are putting on. Because guess what? There's an awful lot of pressure on this Chelsea team at the minute. There's an awful lot of expectation, and there's an awful lot of criticism because they rightfully haven't started the season well. Now,
so basically, Tom, we should keep playing Ben Chilwell left wing because he's experienced. That's what you're saying then?
No, I'm saying that your solution shouldn't be to get rid of all the experienced players in the squad. Your solution should be to let it play out. Let Poch figure it out what his plan is. Maybe Chilwell isn't the long-term solution, but he's waiting for the situation to calm down more before he puts in an Ian Maatson. He's waiting for the likes for your midfield to be more settled in. Like Romeo Lavia, let's discuss him. Let's discuss Lavia. He's not even made a matchday squad yet. £60 million not even made a matchday squad. Maybe the plan is to let everything else get more settled before he brings in these young players, which have a bigger element of risk. Like you said, Ian Maatson had a good season in the Championship. The Championship, it is a massive jump up from the Championship to the Premier League at Chelsea.
Poch came out and said he wanted to keep this guy. He believes in this guy. Like I said, he was playing him in pre-season, okay? Don't waste the guy's time. Don't say you want to keep him and do all of these things and then play someone that can't play in that role ahead of him. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not defending. There's nothing. There's nothing I can say to defend.
He's counteracted himself though. He's counteracted himself because yes, he might have said, I want to keep him, but then why are you accepting bids?
That was the club that accepted the bids. That was the club. That wasn't Poch.
So you're telling me that Mauricio Pochettino said no, and the club went, oh no, we're going above your head. That's a bigger issue in itself.
That's an issue.
Yeah, but he's straight profit on the books because he's straight out of the academy. So if
that's still an issue, though. That's still the original question came in for you was like, call out your owners. If your owners are selling people over your manager's head, that's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem. It's a big problem.
And do you know what I think that you're doing here, Don? Sorry to interject. Man United fans are guilty at this in a minute. I was in a space earlier where I went on. I think people take what managers say in press conferences too literally. Like, I don't actually believe that Arteta takes that many routes to work. I think it was a hypothetical example. But I honestly believe the work. I don't know whether it's schooling of younger people, different from people have lost their minds. They are taking things in press conferences seriously. I actually don't understand why any human being watches them. All I look for is who's injured, who's not. It's the only bit that's important. The rest of it is the media. You got to remember, the media are asking questions to try and create stories. So the managers just give, generally speaking, bland, PR-written answers that are basically, yes, I love everybody. Everybody is great. Nothing to see here. Please go home. Do you know what I'm saying? So yes, he may have said, I'm happy with this guy or I like this person in that position, but we don't know what's going on in training. We don't know who's really performing well. We don't really know who's working hard, who gets up late, who misbehaves. None of us know this. And every now and then a story comes out. The irony of me saying this, we're coming on to Sancho later in the show. But Arsenal went through this with Aubameyang. Why is this not happening? Why is this going on? Why is he being moved there? Why is he not starting? And then it all came out. Then the problems emerged. And I'm not saying you've got that. It may be something else. But I've had this conversation with Lee many times in recent weeks. Going straight to the conclusion of the manager is sabotaging us. He's lied that he likes his player because he's not playing is the reason. Like these managers are dumb. I just think that's what it feels like. That conclusion with logic straight away. Maybe the players you want in those positions ain't pulling their weight at training, are not following the instructions. There could be 110 reasons. And the only thing I would say is this. Why, and it's a question more than a statement, why is the instant reaction always self-sabotage? Manager doesn't know what he's doing. Why is he picking shit players? He's stupid.
Done it 4 games in a row. He has done it 4 games in a row.
But why does that mean he's dumb as opposed to other players not pulling their weight?
Because it's not working. Because it's not working, Terry. You've got other options.
Yes,
I'm a fan,
Let me ask you a question. I'm not saying this is going on. It's a hypothetical question. Would you pick a player and put him into a team if his behavior or his application in training isn't good enough? Would you put him in even if the people ahead of him are failing?
But now we're just speculating, though.
No, but you're speculating as to why the manager is making these mistakes. We're all speculating. I'm trying to give you a hypothetical scenario. Would you do that?
Well, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
Yeah. So this is why I'm saying, criticize little things, but people are going so far over the top with their criticism 4 games in. You have no idea what's going on. Players are still being tested. More patience is needed. I get 2, 3, 4 years, but 4 games. Fuck my boots. I've never seen anything. The last time I saw something as premature of this, I was watching American Pie and Jim splashed his load in 10 seconds. The last time I saw something as premature as that.
I agree with you 100%. No one should be saying Poch out. All it is Poch needs to fix up and revert back to basics. We don't want to see no Ben Chilwell or left wing anymore. That's it. We're not asking for too much.
Don, I'd say in terms of your not obsession with youth, but in terms of wanting to play all of the young players and just based on talent and ignoring experience and all the rest of it, look at, as an example, look at the way Kovacic has settled in at City, look at the way Rice has settled in, look at the way Maddison settled in, compared to Caicedo, who's much younger. Everyone agrees the talent is there with Caicedo, but he looks like a fish out of water at Chelsea at the moment. If you have 7 or 8 players on the pitch who are all that young, who have never really played with each other before, have never experienced this level, and the pressure that comes with playing for Chelsea, you could get battered 6 or 7-0 against a big team, and that for those kids would be absolute hell. So I do think Pochettino has to try and balance the squad with that sort of experience. You cannot just throw in every kid because they look talented in other games.
No problem. So play Ben Chilwell left back and play an actual attacker in his position. It's as simple as that. No one's disagreeing with what you're saying, Rory, but at the end of the day, this is the reality of the situation. There's a lot of young players. Poch has been specifically brought in to develop and play these young players. We can't run away from it. We can speak about it all day. Chelsea should have bought experience. Yes, we know that. But at the end of the day, he's working with young players right now. Play them. Do you get it? If you want to play Ben Chilwell, play him at left back. That's literally it. I'm not asking for too much. We're not asking for too much. If he was getting results, cool, fair enough. But it's clearly not working, and he keeps persisting with it. It doesn't make any sense.
I get you there. I want to go to some super chats here. This one says, Don, there is stuff happening in the background. The fans are not helping. Helping. These fans are spoiled, and they have no patience. I am sick of this fan base, is what the Irish Yellow has got to say here.
The ones who said sack him are spoiled. Yeah, you're right.
Did Poch pick these players, or was the hierarchy that chose? Is Poch a coach and not a manager?
It's Poch picking these players. He's deciding to pick out these lineups. So it's on him. Yeah. It's on him right now.
This year says can't with Dom. It's Don with an N on the end. We are playing the same system that we did in pre-season. Injuries forced Poch to play players in different roles.
Oh, is Maddison injured? Is Noni injured? Is Mudryk injured? That's what I thought.
Do you know what I love? Like you're doing what United fans do here. Mudryk's been arse. He's been unwashed, uncleaned arse for 6 months. And it's almost like that's being play him, start him. Chilwell's better than him.
I'm not saying start Mudryk right now.
Better than him right now.
I'm not saying start Mudryk right now. I'd rather play a Maddison there. I'd rather play someone else there.
Right.
So
I get you.
There's other options there.
Gav here says, silly to get on Poch's back. We've just replaced the squad in 12 months. He and the players need time and team to chemistry to build. Poch is not Potter. Mateos here also says, I swear Chelsea fans always revert back to blaming the coach when things go crap. Call out your underperforming players. Don is excuses FC.
I literally said that we should have buried some of these chances that we had. I'm not saying that the players don't get any blame. I was actually debating with someone in a group chat that I'm in. They were trying to give the players excuses. I said they can't get away with that performance the other day. But end of the day, it's the manager that sets out that plan. So they're both to blame right now.
I hear what you're saying. Rory, you were going to say something earlier about Caicedo. Around you were asking the question, is
you're worried about him? Yeah, just in terms of the way he started. Again, if you look at the way Rice has settled in and having such a big impact on Arsenal, the way Bellingham settled in at Real Madrid, which is the biggest club in the world, arguably, do you worry that Caicedo, who went for more money than both of them, is really looking quite uncomfortable?
No, he's not looking uncomfortable. If you've actually watched us 90-minute games, he hasn't looked uncomfortable. He was pretty good the other day. Apart from that heavy touch, I don't know why Gallagher decided to open his legs the way he did and just do what he did there. I don't understand why he did that. But Caicedo, yeah, there's more to come from him. And like I said, the midfield's a bit disjointed right now, man. We're playing him in the pivot with Gallagher, who's not a 6. yeah, and you're playing Enzo as a 10. Swap them round if you're going to do that. Do you get it? So I'm not worried about him right now, man. I know this guy's quality. Your club wanted him. You know, a lot of clubs wanted him. Liverpool wanted him. They bidded a British transfer record bid to get him. So he'll come good, man. He'll come good. But right now, it's just the personnel that he's playing with right now. It's a bit disjointed, man. So Poch just needs to fix up in that midfield. But I'm not worried at all, Rory. Definitely not worried.
Good.
Nobbins, you've been quiet for a bit. Do you think Caicedo or some of these other youngsters can end up getting lost at Chelsea with the lack of experience players surrounding them, giving them a spine?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I like the whole. What was it you said that a Bowley basically coming out and saying we basically refuse to sign anyone over 25. I think you need a mix of both experience and youth. To be honest, I don't really get it. I don't really get the Cole Palmer signing, to be honest, from a Chelsea perspective. I know Don said that he wants players to be played in their correct position, but then I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but then I believe Don said, but I want to see Cole Palmer in the number 10. Palmer notoriously being
number 10. He's predominantly played as number 10 in his professional career, actually.
Well, that's not true. I promise you that I've watched every single minute of Cole Palmer's career at a senior level at City, and he's primarily a right winger who can play at left wing, and I can recall one good performance at 10, and that was against Bruges 2 years ago. He's not a number 10.
If
he can play there, but
he can play
if you're talking, he can play as a 10, but I'd suggest it's his third best role. If you want to make the point of you should play players in their correct positions, which I agree with, I don't think that you should then be trying to slot in a right winger who is definitely a right winger.
Well, he played well when he came on as a 10. He played very well when he came on. He actually looked like he was attacking with an intent. And I've seen him play for City in a 10, and he looked comfortable there. He looked very comfortable there. And he even said it himself that he can play as a 10 or as a right winger. And when we brought him in, we specifically brought him in to play both roles. He can comfortably play that 10 position. I've got no worries about Palmer playing there.
I don't know which game you saw him play as a 10. I can't think of any off the top of my head where he was good. As I say, the only one I can think of is in Bruges in the Champions League a couple of years ago. Look, it's fine to bring in a fluid forward, but if you're making this big song and dance about, you're having to go at Poch not playing players in the correct position, I think you've got to take that advice yourself and recognise that Palmer is not an out-and-out 10. He can play as a 10, but if you're going to go and spend £45 million on a player who is best as a right winger, when you've already got Sterling, you've already got Madueke, you've already got all these other left-footed forward players, surely if you want someone who is like a number 10, you should be getting someone who is nominally a 10 rather than a wide player who can play at 10. And again, I think, and I know you didn't want to have a go at the owners in the first instance, but surely, as we've discussed, that's clearly, Chelsea signing Palmer, clearly that's not a Poch signing, is it? That's a Bowley signing. That's a club signing. I mean, so surely more blame needs to be put at the door of the ownership for. Yeah, Poch has to take some of it as well, but he's not been given all the right tools. Do you not think?
No, but the thing is, the club actually wanted a signing that can play as a 10 and as a winger. Hence why I was looking at Kudus, was looking at Olise because he can do that role as well. Was looking at Cherky, he can play on the wing, he can play down the middle as well. So as much as you might not rate Cole Palmer in that 10, in my opinion, I think he can play in that 10. So in this season, I think you're going to see him shine in that position. When he came on, we actually looked like was attacking with a bit of intent. And like I said, when Jackson had that miss, he was playing in that position as a 10, and he slid that ball through to Sterling. Sterling chopped it back, and Jackson missed. I think he can play that role. He's got the attributes to play that role. So
I think you'll see it. I think he can definitely play it, but I just think that if you want a 10 who can play as a winger, surely it makes sense to sign a 10 who can play as a winger rather than a winger who can sort of play as a 10. That's just my own thoughts on it.
I get your logic. But I think he'll do well in the 10.
Chelsea. You've got too many project pieces. You've got a project on the right. You've got a project on the left. You've got a project up front. You've got a project in the middle. You've got another project who's just sat in the stands at the minute. You've got a project at right back. You've got a project at left back. You've got a project at centre back. You've got so many projects. There's no actual finished article. Therefore, there's nothing to base your team off of. You can't have success and yet have all these projects because you don't know when they're going to succeed. And the best way projects succeed is when they have a stable environment around them. The least stable environment they could have is this Chelsea one, where they are surrounded by the same type of player they are. There is no one to turn to in that Chelsea.
This is so ironic. This is so ironic coming from a Liverpool fan because all of our midfielders, your club wanted. Your club wanted. These are young players with quality. You've missed the point. We weren't surrounding them with 20-year-old right wingers, 20-year-old centre backs, and 24-year-old keepers who were riding Brighton's bench. I agree with you,
surround
Tom.
them with genuine world-class players who were going to give them the cover they needed in case they made mistakes. Right now,
I agree
you have
with you.
way too many projects.
I love you, Don. You are one. You should. I don't know what you do for a job, but if you ain't a lawyer, you are missing your calling, bruv. Do you know what I'm saying? You could have done what you could have done what Kardashian did and got OJ off, bruv. Trust me. Do you know what I'm saying? Next time Andrew Tate's in trouble, he should bail up Don. You know, this man could defend anything.
You know what it is? I agree with what you guys are saying about the experience and stuff. Like, no one's disagreeing with that. You make good points, and we all agree. But what I'm saying is, this is the reality that we're in right now. Right? Play the players that you've got, Tom. We haven't even seen the team that we want to see. We haven't seen it yet, bro. We haven't.
I hear you on that. This is sorry, already done this super chat here. Apologies. African Giant says, I need you to tell me there's light at the end of the Chelsea tunnel, Terry. I don't believe Don anymore. I'm pretty much immune to losses. There could be. I think you will improve, but that you need to be supportive to get there. I think becoming angry, especially with young players, becoming angry, going over the top, writing people off, turning on the manager. I understand criticism is needed, but turning on them, creating a more toxic environment, it's going to end badly, in my personal opinion. Aya says, fans only think positional changes solve tactical issues like on FIFA. Lol.
I mean,
this says, Tom, Chelsea and their fans don't believe in projects, is what Manny says.
I don't expect them to either straight away,
right.
because their club's identity for the past 20 years has been success, success, success. If we don't get it one season, we're doubling down and getting it next.
You gotta get it.
And
absolutely.
they're not in that state now, and they have to accept that.
Yep.
Absolutely. We're moving on to talk Jadon Sancho in just a few moments, people. So make sure you stay with us. We're going to be covering the Arsenal game later as well and getting final season predictions. Before that, I want to shout out our sponsors today, NordVPN. I know a lot of you have signed up for their services to make sure that you can mask your IP address to protect your identity when you're online. But I know a lot of you are using it to watch those 3 p.m. Premier League games and Premier League games in general at the weekend with the Santa Sport, just like me. Take a little butchers at this. It's very simple to do. You sign up to NordVPN, and all you have to do is connect. You can either do it in Moldova or you can connect to Georgia, and there it is, Satanta Sport, all the 3 p.m. Premier League games, all the others, well, every Premier League game is available on this app for you to legally stream, and it's $3.99 a month. There's also UFC, there's F1, there's NBA, NHL, loads of different things available on this app called Satanta Sport. You can see there all those different options. Even the Saudi League is on there, by the way. So if you want to watch all these stars in Saudi, it's all available. Sign up to NordVPN so you can change your geolocation and access that, and plus more content around the world also. I used it last night because I wanted to watch Rambo, and Rambo was on Netflix in Canada, so I switched it to Canada and watched Rambo. Love that film. First Blood, not Rambo. It's called First Blood, not Rambo, actually. But go and check that out, people, and get signed up to NordVPN today. Hannah.
Terry.
Man United's in a ickle bit of a mess right now. We've got to be honest. The manager called out Sancho for essentially not being of the right standard in training. That's why he wasn't in the matchday squad yesterday. We'll get onto the game later, but the manager's called him out. Sancho's released a statement essentially saying that Ten Hag's lied. Don't believe it. I always give my all. Fans are now arguing over what person to believe. Either of them have spoken publicly? How's the dressing room going to recover? What's your take on this? Have you taken a side? Do you think somebody's wrong here? What is your take on this current situation with Sancho and him trying to expose Ten Hag as a liar?
Yeah, well, firstly, I don't think it's black and white. I think there's so much going on at Manchester United, even take away from the Sancho situation, you've got the ownership situation. There's just so much going on. And Manchester United is never out of the scrutiny spotlight. So for me, that's kind of where I start in this. So I don't think that Erik Ten Hag should have said what he said in the way that he said in the press conference yesterday. I mean, I'm all for him being honest, and I think that's an attribute that a lot of Manchester United fans respect about him. But I can't understand what Jadon Sancho thought he was doing. I mean, we have to, as fans, back the manager. You have to, as players, back the manager, especially a player that has come in to, lack of a better word, a complete and utter shitstorm. And he's actually done quite a good job in the last year of kind of building this togetherness in the squad. And along the way, he's had Mason Greenwood, Cristiano Ronaldo. He has had all the scandals you can have in the space of the year that he's been here. And when I saw Jadon's statement yesterday, I mean, I think he should defend himself, but to a point, and there's a way of doing it. The fact that he's pinned it to his Twitter profile after an hour after a loss, and not just a loss to Arsenal and a loss in the way that we did lose. I think, bro, read the room. You know, this is a manager, like I said, that has just come off the back. We've literally just kind of got out of the Mason Greenwood situation, still there because he's on loan. But all of these things, it's like, Jadon, read the room. And I think now as a result of that, whether he plays for Manchester United again, that's is going to obviously be the next thing. But even if he stays in the squad, even if he, kind of comes through, that's kind of tarnished him there now, I think. And he was already under a lot of scrutiny. He's not really been performing to his Jadon Sancho at Dortmund self, which is a shame. But I think to come out and say that and to basically call out the manager in such a public way off the back of a loss, going into an international break where this is going to fester, it's going to get worse, I think it was bang out of order. But I know that's a controversial take.
How about yourself, Staffy? Because I'll call it out. I saw your tweet when I woke up this morning. It was on my TL where it seems like you're backing Sancho with hashtag free Sancho. His accusation that Ten Hag has lied, that this isn't true. What's your thoughts on this situation that's now arisen?
I mean, free him out of this club, man. I don't want him to stay in this club. I wanted him sold in the summer, not because I don't like him, because we kill technical footballers whenever they come to this club, and it's been a trend that's been happening for years. So he's just a new victim. Listen, you're laughing, but it's the truth. I heard this fan base tell me that Pogba's shit. That's nothing new that I'm not used to. I heard fans
for Man United, they said. They didn't say he had no ability.
No, there's people that still call him just shit. They just purely call him shit, and that's the level of knowledge to what some of our fans in this fan base. Obviously, I'm not saying the whole fan base says that. But there's people that still say that. I had people messaging me yesterday saying you're defending him. Obviously, they thought I defended Pogba a few years ago, as if I was on YouTube anyways, and saying, oh, you was probably defending Pogba, who was shit too. Same thing that happened to Di Maria. We called him shit because he had a poor season. There's so many technical footballers that came to this club that we have destroyed for one reason or another, and somehow it's always them and it's not us. About the situation itself, though, listen, I'm not Sancho in, I'm not Ten Hag out, because people took my message as me saying I'm not backing the manager. I'm down the middle on this one because there is reasons why I think Ten Hag was wrong, and there's a reason why I think Sancho was wrong. The thing about Ten Hag, I've seen him multiple times, and Terry, you talk about this so many times when it comes to Lee Gunner, when you guys address this. Lee Gunner is always an advocate of managers calling out players, and you've persistently always said managers come out and protect their players, even though it's not the truth, but they come out and they protect their players. We just lost 3-1 to Arsenal, and you're being asked about a player who's not in the squad. It's the same thing when managers get asked about players that they're linked with, and they were like, out of respect, we're not going to talk about them because they're not in our club. He wasn't at the game. Could have easily said no comment. Or he wasn't in the game today, I'd rather talk about the players who played today. He's done that before. I've seen him defend De Gea saying, De Gea is a top player, we want to keep him. Meanwhile, they was taking back his contract offer because they wanted Onana. He was protecting Maguire. Meantime, he wanted him sold. Even Ronaldo walked out on us on the pitch, and they asked him right after the game, what is he going to do about it, blah, blah, blah. He said, we'll discuss that behind closed door, basically. I don't remember the exact words, but he didn't even put him on blast. Even though that was the most obvious one, a player walking out on the pitch, and even that, he protected him. But then you come out and you call the player and you say, he's not training well and he's not up to the standards. Now, listen, if he's actually not training well, he's not up to the standards, that's fair play. I'm not defending him based on that because I have not seen the training sessions. I don't know what happens in training. Maybe Ten Hag is right. Maybe he's not training well. But in Sancho's head, I am training well. Their standards are it's so clear that the standards are different because he thinks he's training well. The manager doesn't think that. The issue is that we put out our dirty laundry. But who started that? It was Ten Hag. I've seen Ten Hag protect players, but this time he didn't. Sancho retaliating, yes, it's not the best thing. If you said something that bothered me, I'll wait until we go backstage and be like, Terry, I didn't like how he said that. Please, next time, don't say that again because it offended me. Something like that. That's the polite way and the sensible way to deal with it. But maybe I'm not sensible. Maybe you say something, I'm like, no, Terry, don't say that about me. And then I clap back while we're live. That's basically what Sancho did. And I don't blame him for retaliating the same way. I would have hoped that he didn't, but he has a complete right to come out and defend his name and clear his name when someone is saying, because it's one of the most disrespectful things as a footballer to be told that you don't train well. That is you didn't play well in a game. The manager's saying you don't train well. It's the basics of being a footballer to train well. So obviously, if he thinks he's training well, he didn't take that well. So he came out and cleared his name. The situation sucks as United fans, but I don't think people who are coming at Sancho and now they're putting all these old news where people saying he was not training well, and I'm seeing videos of him doing press-ups. You know, they're saying, look, it's a half a push-up. Bro, Tom Little, one second. Tom Little, you watch the NBA. You know Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard came out and said, because when they shoot air balls, his manager tells them, if you shoot an air ball, you're supposed to drop down and do 10 push-ups. Mind you, Kawhi Leonard has won multiple championships and he's a future Hall of Fame. He said, I'm not doing push-ups. What? Because I missed, because I didn't do well at training. He's like, I don't care. And that's a Hall of Famer. People are all of a sudden talking about training and standards of training. But when I was telling them about preseason, I'm saying he played well in preseason. They said preseason hype. It was an actual game that I've seen with my eyes. But you guys are believing a training session that you didn't see.
Staffy, I understand where you're coming from. Let me just first say what I know you're not calling me out. I agree. I don't like dirty really No. I agree. I'll tell you this now, though, before me and Lee are gonna go live tomorrow, he will slam the manager for doing it. Because now Ten Hag's done what Lee Gunner asks for. Lee Gunner will change his mind and say, we'll find a way of twisting it into a bad thing. I already know, right? If he doesn't, I'll hold my hands up. Anyway, I think he's wrong to have done it, Ten Hag, unless there's one thing at play here. And I go back to the most recent example we've seen at the highest level when Mikel Arteta publicly stated why Aubameyang wasn't there. It wasn't the first time Aubameyang had not lived up to the standards, expectations, or behaviors. And it got to a point where the manager's like, I'm not protecting you anymore because your behaviors or your training standards or whatever it may be, and I'm generalizing in football here, is impacting this team and squad. So you're right. I want the manager to say, I rate Maguire while he's trying to sell him. Not just to be respectful, but equally to try and maintain the valuation. We knew that Ronaldo was going to be phased out, and you probably were someone that advocated that because there's no way you could do the pressing and the running that was needed at his age. But the manager was still probably happy to have him on the bench. The player forced his way out. We remain professional. I have a feeling, and I've got a gut feeling, and this is why you're seeing the training things be shared. I do think it's relevant. I don't think Ten Hag should have done it unless we're in that scenario where it's the third, fourth, fifth time, and the manager saying, hang on, I've been nice, I sent you to the hills, I put my arm around your shoulder, I protected you, and all in an effort to try and motivate you to train to the highest standards, and I don't think you have. Now, Sancho might, maybe the manager, maybe you're right, and the manager hasn't communicated with him, and they're both just a miscommunication. I just, knowing Ten Hag's career, he's a meticulous man. He is going to tell people bluntly, you're not up to standard in my view. I just don't think Sancho's finishing training. He's going, oh, well done today, Sancho. You were great. And then goes into his office and says to his coaches, he was really bad today. I personally don't believe that. The reason you're seeing people bring up all these previous stories at City, Dortmund and England about bad training habits is because certain people are saying Ten Hag's lied about this and just made it up. Mm-hmm. So the fact is there's proof in the past that his training standards haven't been good enough, I do think is significant when you start going down the lines of calling Ten Hag a liar. Saying Ten Hag's telling the truth, but he shouldn't have said it publicly, is different from calling him a liar. If he's telling the truth, you've got your answer, Staffy, as to why him as an individual is failing at Man United because he isn't training hard enough. And we knew last year his fitness wasn't there. And a lot of people actually believe the reason he was away for 3 months is because his fitness was dire. And he was got sent away, get yourself fit and come back. And the manager protected him. Maybe, listen, I pray to God that was the reason. I hope he wasn't away for 3 months with severe mental health issues or a different type of problem he had to solve, because I wouldn't want him to go through that as a human being. So for me, it's like, I don't want it being aired in public. Totally agree with that, and Ten Hag started it. But I'm remaining like sort of in the middle on this whole debate because I just have a gut feeling that this isn't the first time Sancho has pissed the manager off, and it's got to a boiling point now, because you know what we needed yesterday? We needed Sancho on form in our squad, but you can't be picking players that are not following the rules. And so
I
for
don't
me,
think the manager rates him. If I'm being honest with you, I really don't think he rates him.
I think the manager. I think listen, maybe the manager doesn't rate him, but at the same time, Ten Hag was. I don't think he was rude when he said it yesterday. Listen to the video, but that looked like a man that was pissed off. And if it was a player that you don't rate and don't want in your squad, why would you be annoyed at him? Why would you? You just go, great. You're in a reserve. You wouldn't. I just don't think you would put the time and energy he has into him. He wouldn't have protected him last year. I think he's tried to get the best out of Sancho. Sancho hasn't delivered. And for me, now all we're now seeing is we're going to get from his fanboys. There's going to be a rewriting of history. I still see him do it. They talk about he should be playing like he's been delivering for 2 years for us. I saw his PR team have come out and said Sancho doesn't listen. They've clearly read Twitter, listened to what his supporters have said, and then released a statement similar, basically saying there's favoritism. That lovely buzzword that people come out with. There's favoritism, and he doesn't get enough opportunities. I went and looked at the stats because this stat doesn't lie. Since Anthony joined Manchester United, Sancho has played 1,775 minutes. Anthony has played 2,129 minutes. That's the equivalent of 4 games. So Sancho had 4 games less than Anthony since he joined. This lie that he hasn't been given an opportunity compared to Anthony is a myth. It's a myth. You know, and listen, I want Sancho to work out at Man United. I was a massive advocate for him coming. I rate him highly as a technical footballer. I love what he does. But he doesn't deliver, doesn't maintain the shape, doesn't track back enough and help the right back. And if you're not going to do the tracking back, the other end of the pitch, you've got to be a game changer. And if you're not a game changer up the attacking end of the pitch and you let the team down with the shape and the running and the pressing and the helping out your fullback defensively, and your training standards aren't there, that should infuriate Man United fans. Not to a point where you abuse him, not to a point where you're disgusting to him, because Sancho doesn't deserve that. But for me, I'm on my manager's side more so than I am Sancho's. But I do want to wait for the dust to settle because I don't want to go totally in. And then it turns out the manager says, look, he's always brilliant. It was one bad training session and I shouldn't have said anything. And then I'll defend him. But I just have a gut feeling because the manager has protected people before. The manager rarely behaves like this. And I don't know. It's a worrying thing for me if we've still got players at the club that are not training hard enough. Rival, what do you think of this situation? I mean, you're emotional about it than we are.
From an outsider's point of view, like, I don't see why Ten Hag would come out and first of all, I don't agree with him coming out and saying that. That should be kept internally, right? But with how he's tried to help Sancho, you know, he put his arm around him, like you said, Terry, already, tried to bring him back into the team, gave him some game time as well when he came back. I don't see why Ten Hag would lie about something like that, but I don't agree with him putting that out in the public. And Sancho, to be fair, that statement doesn't really hold any weight. It's fair enough for him to come out and defend himself because, yeah, Ten Hag was wrong to come out in public and do that. But it doesn't really hold any weight because Sancho hasn't really done anything since he's been at United. You know what I mean? So the fans aren't going to sympathize with him because it's not like he's been performing like a Rashford, for example, and then Ten Hag saying he hasn't been training well. And then Rashford comes out and says that. That holds a little bit more weight. Sancho's right in defending himself because the manager was wrong, in my opinion, to come out and say that in public.
No, he wasn't.
But he was, in my opinion, he was wrong to say that in public. You just managers. Wait, hold on, Tom. Let me land, bro. Yeah, I get that, and I agree with you. That's fine. But managers lie all the time. We know this. He could have come up with something else and dealt with that internally. That could have come out later on. You don't come out in public and say that, bro. Especially now when the window's shut. Because what's the situation now? I asked Staffy this the other day. Where do Man United go from here? It's awkward. The window's shut. The next window's going to be open in January. Where do you go from here?
What I do find interesting. Go on, Tom. Sorry, go on.
I want to spend another narrative of it. Erik ten Hag over the past year has done almost seemingly from an outside looking in. He's tried to help Sancho in many ways. He's given him the time off to sort his head out. He's tried to play in multiple different positions. He tried him as a false nine this pre-season. He's been very much that positive manager, arm around the shoulder. Yeah, Sancho's boss, is that and the other. And it's clearly gotten nowhere because Jadon Sancho was still struggling at Manchester United. At this point, I just see a manager who's going, right, I've tried the nice guy stuff.
Yeah.
At this point, let me just be a bit of a knob to him. Let me call him out. Let me see if he needs a negative reaction to kick him into gear. And he almost gets to stick up his arse and goes, right, I'm going to prove you wrong. How are you going to say that about me? Let me step it up. Because he's tried the nice guy stuff. He's tried the nice guy shtick. And it's not worked. Because if it had worked, Sancho would be starting. But he isn't. So maybe it's not... if it is training, it's a different kettle of fish. But ultimately, I see a manager there who's went, I've tried the nice guy thing. I've tried to keep my arm around you. I've tried to let you go and sort your head out. That's not working. What do I do now?
Yeah,
The fact that he didn't do it in pre-season, the fact that he waited until once the window's shut, when he knows he can't get rid of him, even more backs at one point, because this Sancho training thing, it wouldn't be a one-off thing. It would be a consistent thing that's happened over a number of weeks. Therefore, it would have been happening during the transfer window. Therefore, if he wanted to get rid, he would have got rid in the transfer window. Ultimately, he's waiting until after the window was shut to call them out on it, which to me looks like him trying to get a reaction out the player.
I think the naive thing is, I think the naive thing is that, and we go back to like Arteta and Aubameyang, was that when that all first happened, Arteta said it's a disciplinary issue, he's not in the squad, and that was it. And for a few games after that, he was asked about it, and he just said he's not in the squad. I think if Ten Hag had come out yesterday and just said it's a tactical decision and left it, or it's a disciplinary issue and left it, it wouldn't have given Sancho room to then fire back on social media. I mean, that's the manager's. So I think that was naive. However, if United had won yesterday after Garnacho's goal, if that had stood and United had won, and Ten Hag had done the exact same thing, I think the United fan base would be fairly united in saying the manager's right. Garnacho scored. I think they'd be backing him. So I do think that. I think that, well, you might not be Staffy, but I think as a general, the fan base would be a lot more behind Ten Hag's decision, because it had worked out yesterday. So
do you know what it is, though, Tom? Yeah? You know, I get where I get your logic and I get what you're saying, but I can't agree with it in this case with Sancho, because Sancho hasn't performed the whole time he's been at Man United. Like, if I ask Staffy, if I ask Terry, if I ask Hannah, tell me 3 performances where he's been at a world-class level or been man of the match. They can't tell me a single one, bro. They won't be able to tell me a single one.
Again, the sub he was Liverpool last season. Like, I do listen. I'm not a hater of Sancho. Like, I remember his good games. Do you know what's interesting about it is this? And I can only speak through personal experience, whether it be MDs I had in banking or coaches I had part of Team GB. I very rarely got bollocked for failing, for having a bad tournament, for having a bad fight, for having a bad month at work. I only ever got a bollocking for not trying. And this is the thing for me, and I do think this is generational and a little bit personal for people. Some people, and I think it's their own experiences. I've got a friend like this. He hates the words in football: passion, desire, work rate. Do you know why? Very good footballer was Ashley. Ashley was the best in my year by a country mile, but he got released from 2 academies because they told him he didn't have enough desire, passion, or work rate. So he has grown up hating those words because it's what he didn't have. And I think that's some people that they probably got let go of jobs, or their dad drilled them as a kid. You don't have the work rate, son, so they hate the word work rate now. And other people, it's just a generation. There is a generation of people growing up who have, in my opinion, compared to the previous one, a much lower work ethic, 110%. And they see players called out for work ethic, and it seems to trigger them. It triggers them massively. But for me, the reason why up until it's with Ronaldo, up until the interview, Ronaldo was protected, but then he was gone out of there. For me, though, this is what's going to be interesting now. Sancho's put himself in a position where he may not be, unless he comes out and retracts it, he may not play for the club again, and maybe he shouldn't, because you could lose the dressing room, even subconsciously, if he just comes back in and is allowed to play, because players go, fucking hell, I can do what I want and get away with it. We did that with Martial and Pogba back under Jose. And even though I didn't want them to leave, backing them over Jose led to that dressing room failing. And that led to 5 years of player power that has damaged us exponentially. And this isn't about the individual and your personal feelings towards them. It's about understanding what great leadership and management looks like at every level of sport, business, education, family. It's the same everywhere. So this is the thing for me. You have to remove yourself emotionally from the situation and go, what's the right thing to do? And look, for me, it's going to be an interesting one. Viewers, I'd love to get your opinions on this.
Just to land on my point of why I don't agree with Tom, is because Tom's saying that he's maybe doing this to get a reaction out of Sancho, but we can all see that Ten Hag doesn't fancy Sancho, and a few things are coming out already that he feels that Anthony obviously gets that favoritism because he signed him. He obviously managed him at Ajax, and he prefers him over Jadon Sancho. Ten Hag has never fancied Sancho. Let's be real here.
That's what I said. He should have been sold.
I think right now, this is Ten Hag basically saying that he's wiping his hands with him. He's done with it. That's
why would you play a player that you don't fancy for 1,800 minutes though?
What did you say, Han? Yeah, what did you say, Han? What did you say?
what I'm trying to say is with Ten Hag, right? Obviously, like you might not remember this because it was quite early on, but we've seen him critique Garnacho. He called out Garnacho and he also called out Rashford. And on that same game, Rashford came out and scored. He disciplined Rashford. He called him out after, and he's also called out Garnacho. And look what Garnacho's done. Like he's arguably like our best player that comes off the bench at the moment.
So though Garnacho has not done anything in the game compared to Sancho at that moment to even compare the situations right now. Garnacho 17 last season. No, hold on.
No, you compare the logic, Staffy. You compare the logic. The logic is he's called those people out.
I'll touch on that.
So you're saying because Sancho got a lot of assists in Germany, he can't be called out, but Garnacho can because he's young.
No, that's not what I said. When he called out Garnacho, he said he's not ready to play full games yet, and that I don't think that's him calling it out. That's him saying
he said last season that the reason he hasn't been playing after the preseason there was some attitude issues. But the manager and Bruno both said that.
I thought you were talking about when he said
no. They called him out for some attitude problems that he had in training. Basically, he was getting a bit too big. His bollocks was getting a bit too big, and he was giving it the big un. I've made it, and they were like, "You're not playing when you're acting like that. Like, humble yourself a little bit." I'm paraphrasing, but sorry, Staffy. Yeah, that's why I was trying to get where you're coming from. But he did, and this is what I'm saying. Ten Hag has called people out when attitude's not right. I mean, and Rashford's one was amazing. Rashford was 5 minutes late. We didn't know that at the time.
He still took him to the game. He took him to the game, and even after the game, Rashford was like, "I overslept by 5 minutes," something like that. Like even Rashford came out and joked about it. But he still took him to the game, and he played.
Rashford after the game just said it was my fault. I was late. It wasn't until nearly a year later with the Gary Neville interview where he said it was 5 minutes. So again, 5 minutes, you're on the bench. If it had been half an hour late, I bet he wouldn't have been on the bench. Like, because 5 minutes late's bad, but it's not as bad as everything else. But look, viewers, let us know what you think.
This ain't good though. This ain't good though, because in pre-season, the guy was starting Sancho as a 9. Then when the season started, he dropped him and started playing Rashford there. Clearly, you can see he doesn't fancy him. So from an outsider point of view, I'm looking at the situation. I'm not looking at it like, oh, he wants Sancho to work harder. I'm looking at it like he's given up. He's done with him now. Like,
bro, he played him in the 9, where he's never played that before. He still did it, played in preseason. So he went out of position, which shows that he is disciplined enough to try and contribute something to his team. We all thought that he did decent enough. We said until Højlund is ready, let's play with Sancho in the false 9. Instead, he played Rashford. Instead, he played Martial, and now he played Højlund, which means that in Sancho's eyes right now, he's looking at the manager. He's like, I am 4th option in the position that he asked me to do during the summer.
Facts.
People wonder why he's frustrated with it. I am telling you, the first few games, I came here and spoke a few times. Garnacho wasn't playing well. Rashford wasn't doing well in the 9. Anthony was sticking out the place, and they all were getting start consecutive, a game after day consecutive. And I'm sitting there, and I said, by the way, I said this about Eriksen when Mount was still being played in the first 2 games after 2 bad games, and I said that about what's his name, Pellistri. And I'm like, if I am dead and I'm sitting on the bench and I'm seeing my teammates playing bad, but I am not getting any minutes, no matter how bad they play, I'm gonna sit here and question, well, does the manager even fancy me? I said this on the top 6 for those
Staffy, I get that, Staffy, but this is the thing. I understand that as a point, and it's logical. Equally, there's a way to react to things. And do you know, sometimes in I didn't get a promotion once, and they said it was 50-50 with somebody, but the MD was unsure about my attitude. He wasn't sure elements of my attitude. So the decision was to not give me the promotion and the other guy, because we were close, to see how I would react to not getting the promotion. I did the smart thing. I got my head down and worked even harder and made them realize they made a mistake without having to tell them that. Within 3 months, when the next role came up, I got the job. I didn't even have to interview for it. That's a personal experience. If I'd have been like some employees do, though, when they don't get jobs, is this reason or that reason or the other reason why you're not giving it? You've picked the wrong person and become insubordinate. They'd have gone, we made the right choice. He's got an attitude problem. So there's that. Secondly, if there is, and I believe there has been multiple training issues, this is where you should be more angry at Sancho. If Sancho hasn't been given the chances because he ain't training hard enough, that's not on the manager.
But that's why I said it should have
been sold, but no one came in for him this summer. There was rumours earlier on before the window started that he was someone whose name would be available if anybody came in. And I would say this to you about all your technical ballers and Baller FC out there that are all like, my guys should get more game time. All the guys that have been backed to do well under the manager, for instance, the Sanchos, the Donnies, the Martials, Pogba, but he left before, so we'll leave him out of it. No club on planet Earth has tried to buy him. Chelsea made a little inquiry for Sancho, but that was about it. No one wants to buy him. Yeah, I'm guaranteeing you now, if Man United put Bruno or Rashford on the transfer market tomorrow, there'd be huge bids from multiple major clubs coming in for them. Staffy, that's something that I know you love these guys. Their technical ability, I understand it. But this is where I feel like people have got to be real and drop their personal subjective feelings. The fact nobody wants to buy them. The fact that the team, when I first read it, I thought it was Leyton Orient. But Lorient were the only team significantly interested in.
Yeah, but Dunn is of an ACL, and to be honest, I don't rate him that highly anyways. But he's of an ACL, so he's not going to be
in general, Baller FC, that these guys are going to kick. Why haven't they been given more chances? Because they're not good enough. They might be good enough at another league.
This is why we still don't win. Because we fancy the guys that do more press-ups during training. We're looking for the athletes and not the technical balls.
Staffy, you're in your feelings here. It's nothing to do with
I'm not. This is the truth.
No, you are in your feelings. We don't pick the players that do better. Rashford isn't playing over Sancho because he's got a better body and does more push-ups. He's playing over Sancho because he scores more and delivers more for the team. I agree. Sancho is light years ahead of him in terms of ability, but he doesn't impact the team enough. It has nothing to do with doing push-ups, and we ruin people with technical ability.
Yes, we do rate these players, Terry. I'm telling you. That's why Sanchez came in and failed.
We don't ruin them. They ruin. Hang on. Where's the responsibility on the players themselves?
No.
Everyone comes in. We never rated technical ballers.
Staffy, answer me a question. Answer me a question honestly, bro. How can the guy with more technical ability be damaged more so than a player with less technical ability? How does that even make sense?
Don't play. When you look at this team, we don't even have enough technical ballers in this team. Okay, so when you throw in, people are judging Sancho by what? Tracking back, sprinting, stuff like that. How about we talk about the ability on the ball? I want to hear more about passing, about link-up play, about
with
dribbling.
The ball then. Hang on a minute. No, I'm sorry. Pep Guardiola, best manager in the world, best team in the world.
Wait, is Pep the best in the world? You said.
Yeah, I'm asking you a question. Yeah,
of course.
That team is predicated on its pressing, its running, its tracking back, staying in shape, getting back into position when you lose the ball. So's Arsenal season last year. Brighton, fantastic at it. Newcastle, impeccable. So it's massively important in 2023. How tacticos ignore this is beyond me. It's the most important bit.
I didn't say ignore it. Okay. But I'm saying that's the only thing that always gets said.
Wait. What the fuck? I'm not swearing at you. I'm talking in general. What stops Sancho playing nice passes when he's in the attack? Nothing.
Yeah, I just think that because our team is not good enough. This is why I'm saying we're getting
it's on the manager. What stops him from doing it?
From doing what? I am explaining to you that this team is not good enough. We have had teams over years that are not good enough, that every time we throw a technical player in that midfield, in that attack, in that defense or whatever, they're not good enough because everyone around is not good enough. This is why even Onana yesterday was getting sacrificed.
How can Bruno Fernandes, who is a creative machine with zero technical ability, in many people's eyes, create opportunities, but Sancho, who's also until he joined Man United, was a creative monster.
Profiles. They're different profiles.
Hang on. That's not the question. How can one not create barely a thing with more technical ability, but somebody that's a bang average footballer can create lots? I don't understand how that works. It's because Sancho ain't good enough.
That's same. Why. I'll tell you why. Because it's the same reason why we don't keep the ball. We have a team. Listen, we look at chances created. We don't even add context into how these chances were created, but we look at Bruno and he does a Hollywood ball and we sit there and we clap. But have we had a team that is able to hold the ball, a team that keeps possession of the ball, a team that can retain the ball? We went to the Emirates yesterday. Our best ball retainer was the goalkeeper. Statistically, he progressed the ball more than anyone. And then we go into the midfield and we lose the ball right away. Arsenal didn't even have to press us because they know in the second phase of build-up, they'll get the ball off us. You know why? Because we have a whole midfield that can't hold the ball. When I am talking about Sancho, but let me land. When I'm talking about Sancho being one of our technical ballers, basically,
why don't he hold the ball more? Why don't he hold the ball more?
Are we not listening to what I'm saying here? I'm saying we have a whole team that can't hold up the ball. So even if you throw one in,
Sancho's one of the technical players that should be able to do it, and he doesn't.
Yeah, but so is Anthony. Anthony held the ball up yesterday, and he didn't have a great game, but he held up the ball more than anyone.
But this is the point I'm making. You keep saying we ruin these technical footballers, but they come in and then they don't hold on to the ball either. They don't create any. They don't do anything regularly enough.
We've never.
Terry, can I ask you a question? Terry,
can I ask you a question? Enough.
Can I ask you a question, Terry? If Jadon Sancho went to Man City instead of going Man United, do you think he would have been a success at Man City?
He could have. He may have been. He may well have been. Look, Sancho's also been damaged, and I've said it before, by problems at Manchester United, internal issues at Manchester United. The club was in turmoil last year. That's why I gave him a bit of a pass, and I never went in on him really last year. I defended him from being a flop in his first season. Last year, I expected more from him, and we didn't get enough. I expected I didn't even know what I expected this year from him, if I'm being absolutely honest. But hearing that he ain't training hard enough, I've got no time for it. I understand where you're coming from, Staffy. I want us to retain a bit more ball. I want us to have better ballers in this team. But we have Christian Eriksen's coming. He's technically gifted. The only thing that lets him down, he doesn't have the physicality. But he moves the ball quite well. He's been technically gifted on it. As an example, Juan Mata played here for nearly almost a decade. He didn't regress as a player when he came to Man United. He was in shit teams, but he was very good. Sancho hasn't delivered. That is on Sancho for a large part, in my opinion. If a less technical footballer playing in the same position as him with the same instructions can deliver, I don't understand how someone less talented can out-achieve you if it's all just about the tactics, because therefore the less talented person would have even worse numbers.
You're both right. The thing is, I agree with what you're both saying. I agree with what you're saying. Terry, Staffy, yeah? Sancho has to take responsibility for his performances because he hasn't been good
never
enough.
said don't give him responsibility.
Let me land, bro. And I agree with what you're saying in terms of Sancho has been playing with Dross. I do agree with that because I honestly think that if he went to a different club, like a Man City, for example, if he went back there, I think he would have done a lot better than Man United. He should have never gone Man United, to be honest with you. Should have never gone there, right? So I do agree with both the points that you're making because Sancho hasn't been good enough for Man United either. So you can't take away the responsibility.
I get. I think what it is to me, I'm not really having a go at you, Staffy. I'm just passionate about this. What I get sick and tired of, because I've heard it, by the way, on YouTube under Moyes, under LVG, Jose, Oli, Ragnick, and now again, the players people don't rate, they're shit because they're shit. The players that are the ballers and the world class, they're shit because of the manager and his tactics and training and all the other players. But the ones that they say are shit outperform those guys. It doesn't add up. Logically speaking, for me personally, it makes no sense. I'm not saying things don't impact it, but this notion of we kill the player only, I think it's too biased. Like, I want to go to some of these super chat boys here. This one's, we'll come back to Havertz in a minute. I love Sancho, but Garnacho at 18 has acted more like a grown man than Sancho ever has.
This is the thing with this fan base. They deserve the shit football that they're playing because they actually rate Garnacho as a player more than Sancho.
No, they don't.
There's not a fan base that deserves that more than. Yes, they do. I've seen that.
So again,
look at this guy here.
Again, sometimes you've got to look beyond the exact words people use and try and understand their meaning. Why is always more important than the what. Garnacho has delivered more for Man United in their eyes so far than Sancho. I know Sancho is better than Rashford, technically as a footballer, but Rashford's delivered more. And that's why I prefer him for what he's done for my club so far. It comes down to, at the end of the day for fans, yes, we want things to look a certain way, but it comes down to delivery. It comes down to delivery. And if Sancho was delivering, it'd be loved. He isn't delivering. He's on $350 a week. He come in for big money. We expect a lot from him. It's frustrating. Then it turns out he ain't training hard enough. Of course, fans are going to be angry. Garnacho is not as technically gifted as him. He isn't. But I think so far in his Man United career, he's done more. I really do think he has. He's on $350 a week, at least train well to make the bench. Tom, did you see how Trent switched into a centre-back and Matic went right back instead of inverting in midfield, far more secure?
Yeah, he was almost like dropping in as the central centre-back at points. It was the best we've seen out of the Robertson-Trent combination in terms of one going forward, one staying back.
No, it was very, very good. Thank you here, Kieran. Yes, you can use Paramount in Mexico. The football don't work, though. The movies do. Use Satanta Sports Mother. It's much, much better. In terms of the game yesterday, Rory, onto you guys smashing 3 goals past United. It was the weirdest match reaction I've done in a long time. Man United got more praise from Arsenal fans than by any Man United fan. How did you see the game? Obviously, I know you're buzzing to win it in that way, but how did you see the match in itself?
Yeah, I mean, look, the fact is we could have lost it if it wasn't for a very fine margin with the Garnacho goal. You know, I think if we go 2-1 down there, you sit back and we might not even get a point out of it. So I wasn't massively happy with our performance. I still don't think we're at the best we can be. I thought individually there were some really good performances. Zinchenko coming back in looked very good. The way we moved the ball through midfield and across midfield with Zinchenko is so much better. But I still don't think we're anywhere near at our best. So in that sense, winning 3-1 against United whilst not at your best is great. And I thought tactically United did probably what they needed to do in terms of sitting back and waiting for those counter-attacking opportunities, of which we give away too many, and that's a problem that we need to sort out. And again, you know, Rashford took one of them, but I thought there were a couple that he was wasteful on as well. And yeah, I thought we probably did deserve to win. Saka's chance, that was pretty much a tap-in he should have done better with. Obviously, Havertz had that chance as well. And ultimately, I think it was like our 12th or 13th corner that we eventually scored from. That felt like it was coming. And then I guess the thing I didn't like off the back of it was the way that Ten Hag's kind of, you know, thrown his toys out of the pram and tried to blame a whole number of different decisions, all of which I think everyone, every pundit, every ex-professional, the ex-referees have all kind of agreed that the decisions were pretty much all correct anyway. So I felt, yeah, Ten Hag maybe should have taken a bit of responsibility rather than blaming that. But from an Arsenal perspective, we've had 4 games where we've not played that well, and we've got 10 points from it. So it could be a lot worse.
I'm okay, Manny. I'm okay.
Yeah, no, I don't. Do you know what? Listen, there's a little irony in there, considering who your manager is, the amount of times he's called out decisions and been angry after games. But it was weird because I woke up this morning and my honest first thought was, "Oh, we beat Arsenal," and then I remembered, "Shit, the goal got disallowed." It was a madness. And look, I've said it all along. The offside, I've seen a lot of United fans say it wasn't. It was offside. You know, the trigonometry, like the accuracy of the way these lines are done is very, very. It's better than the naked eye, and it was very marginally offside, and it was gutting. We were unlucky to concede a deflected shot very late on, and look, the third goal was icing on the cake for Arsenal, but it flattered the overall performance. I rewatched about 80, 90 minutes of the game, and watching it without pressure, knowing what happened, there was large parts of the game. There was big parts of the game I was happy with, and there's other elements where you can see where we need the improvements. And I think when Højlund's starting, when Amrabat is in this team, I think, you know, when we've got our main centre back pairing back, there'll be improvements. There are huge issues at the club. The fact that because of all these injuries, we're having to play Maguire and Evans at centre back is, I think if our centre backs that started finished the game, I think we may walk away with a point. Delo actually had a really good game, but him being right-footed didn't help with attacks down the left-hand side. We had that counter-attack opportunity where Rashford's been cooked for it, but I watched it back again today. He shapes his body to play the right pass to Højlund, but Højlund runs in the wrong bloody direction, and he can't make the ball in. There was a few little mistakes like that, but there are areas to be happy with. I think from my reflection now looking back, of course, there's areas to criticize. You know, the concentration in those last 10 minutes should have been better. We definitely shouldn't be conceding goals 35 seconds after a restart. Those areas need big criticism. We definitely need to work out against teams of Arsenal's quality away from home how to get results, because our away form against the top 9 is horrendous and it needs to improve. But there are areas where I feel, because of some of the other performances so far this season, we're almost overlooking the good things we did in this game and acting like they didn't exist. And I think there's some areas that Man United fans can be really positive about. I actually think that international breaks come at the worst time for us. We need a game tomorrow. We need a game Wednesday so we can kind of get the air back in our lungs. And it's not been a great start for us, only 6 points, but we've been away to 2 of the big boys. We haven't got the results we wanted, but I do think there's this premature reaction. There's Ten Hag out is trending. People completely writing off our season. I think that's wrong to do right now. Some teams start well, some teams start poorly. We've seen these things change around. Last year was identical. In fact, we were much worse last year. But yeah, look, Arsenal in the end, you could say they deserved it. They scored the goals. But it's one of those horrible ones where we were losers, but I just didn't feel like a loser at the end of it, if that makes sense. But and then that rarely happens. Normally when Man United lose, I say we're out, we were rank and we were crap and we didn't deserve anything. But yeah, a gutting day, really. Gutting day.
It's our least... how do I say this? It wasn't our worst defeat. How many games did we lose? We lost. I mean, the Wolves game for you was like a loss. That's why I'm asking that. The Wolves game was so bad that I'm looking at it. The performance so bad, you thought we lost. But compared to the Spurs game and yesterday's game, actually, I was pretty calm on your match reaction yesterday, Terry, up until the Onana moment. But before that, if you remember when I started, I was very calm. I mean, like when you look back at it, I didn't actually like lash off like I usually do, because in isolation, here's the issue. When you look at this game in isolation, just those 90 minutes, we actually did well to stay in the game. The issue why I think a lot of fans are overreacting or properly reacting in their own eyes, I guess, is because the performances haven't been good. It's more than one poor performance in their eyes, and especially when you're looking at our way of form since last season, in the big games at least.
Yeah,
another loss. But when you look at it, we did well to stay in the game until the end of the game. I took some positives in terms of our initial build-up. I was talking about this earlier. Our first phase of play, which is basically the build-up between the goalkeeper, the DMs, and the defenders, we actually did well there. We had Arsenal sitting there wondering if they should press or not. Whenever they tried to press, it didn't work. Whenever they left us, we still were able to find a way to get out of our half. The issue was when we reached their half, we couldn't keep the ball. So the first phase, we worked on that. The second phase, that's what we have to work on now. So that's a positive that I took out. Onana, the fact that Onana was our number one ball progressor is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. By the way, statistically, he had less progressions. When I say progressions, because I know you don't like these tactical words, but progression is just moving the ball up the pitch. That's all it is. So he was third behind only Declan Rice and Saliba. And these are top quality players on the Arsenal side. So only Rice and Saliba found a way to move the ball up the pitch more than Onana, which just shows me two things. Number one, talking about Onana should have never been a thing, which is why yesterday I kind of lost it, because expecting him to save a ball that was deflected from 8 yards shows me that most people have never played football in their life, or they just don't know what they're talking about. And that's a common thing that I see in this fan base. And secondly, you're dismissing everything that he's done in the game. The only reason we even had 54% possession in the first half in the Emirates against a possession-based team was Onana. Obviously, the position of Eriksen, Casemiro, and the center backs played into that, but the main thing was Onana. So these are the positives I'm taking out. Obviously, the negatives are, I think even you will agree on that, Terry. I think we never finished the game strong. We're unable to play with high intensity for 90 minutes, which is why we lost late to Arsenal this season and last season. We give away wins late in the game so many times, and up until Højlund came in, we didn't really have an outlet in their in their half. If people noticed, what Ten Hag kind of did, he did something similar to what Pep did last season when he started playing a little bit more direct into Haaland by going for long balls. That's when he started having a shape of three in the back. That's basically the same thing that we've seen for about 20 minutes yesterday. When Højlund came on, Højlund was an outlet for us because whenever we struggled to come out of our half because of how Arsenal positioned, he actually was an outlet for us where we played the ball into him. He brought it down a few times. And that energy that he brought, I'm not comparing him to Haaland, by the way, before anyone says that. But in terms of the job, he did a similar job to that. So these are some positives to take out.
I think with Højlund, the difference is this. Look, Bruno's never going to be the guy to hold the ball up. That isn't what he's good at. And for me, I'm someone that's Man United have got to get to a point, and where our development needs to progress forward is around no more square pegs in round holes. Bruno's the guy that you need running off of somebody holding the ball up and then getting that ball, and that's what he's good at. Højlund came on and he made the ball stick a few times. Away from winning the game, part of me was gutted as well for the Garnacho goal not being given, because that little flick that he did is part of hold-up play, and this guy's very good at it.
Yep.
And someone in the comments said you didn't have any first phase, you kept the ball in your own half. There was a number of occasions where we passed through Arsenal's press or balls got knocked into that middle area. Martial was just finished physically as a man, and he's gone. He just can't he just can't do it anymore. And that was what was letting us down. And because the way our Arsenal was sitting deeper, there wasn't the ability to knock the ball over to the wide players generally to run into it. And the first opportunity that we had to play Rashford in on that left-hand side, we do it and we score. So you're absolutely right. There are some positives there, but there's some big things for us to work on. In terms of Arsenal, boys, because obviously we spoke a lot about United now, was the only negative yesterday Kai Havertz? I mean, that's what a lot of Arsenal fans online are saying. Kai Havertz was the only real kind of issue there. Like, from your point of view, I want to go Tom first, who's a rival. Was he the only one you looked at there been a problem with, or do you think that's a little bit harsh? He's being scapegoated a bit. They won a game, by the way, but just in terms of general performance, because a lot of people felt like Arsenal weren't at their normal best again.
I think with Arsenal, it's a slow start. It happens. They still played well for the majority, but Kai Havertz, it's not good. It's really not good. When you look at the other midfielders that have moved this window, and even just keeping it within Arsenal, Fabio Vieira looks so much better now. If I was Arsenal, I'd soon just have Fabio Vieira playing
Kai Havertz role than Kai Havertz at the minute. He just so lethargic, under hits passes, over hits passes. Let's not even discuss that left-footed shot. It wasn't a shot, it was a pass. That's what it ended up being. It was that bad. When you get... I just don't get how long you're going to give him to work out. I really don't. 65 million just look worse and worse by the day. I know that he's supposedly got these good attributes, but he's getting outshone by Fabio Vieira week in, week out. And if I was Fabio Vieira, I'd be starting to question why, when's it my turn to have a go in that spot? Because Havertz has done it for 4 games now, and he's been crap. He has not done anything good. The defence, I thought it looked a lot better when Gabriel came in. I thought it looked a lot more solid. I thought there was a little bit more structure to it. I thought Declan Rice was superb in a little bit more of a natural defensive role, which is got to be something to excite Arsenal fans. And I thought, surprisingly, Eddie Nketiah. I didn't expect Eddie Nketiah to have this many strings to his bow. He actually was very, very good at his link-up play yesterday. So, look, it depends on if Arsenal can get back into another one of them runs that they done last season, and I think it's ultimately going to come down to how well they handle the Champions League. If they're able to kick back into a bit of form like they showed last year, they'll be right up there. But if I wouldn't be panicking per se if I was an Arsenal fan. There's positives to take. The fact that you haven't really played at your best and you've still got 10 points out of 12. You take that at the start of the season. You need to be in and around the conversation at this point. That's all you need.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? We're 4 games in, and statistically, by pretty much every metric other than against Fulham, the goals metric, we've dominated every game. We've created far more XG, conceded far fewer XG, had a lot more possession. So I think the basics of the team are there, and we will dominate most games. And I feel like it is really only that kind of the final ball, that final finish that's letting us down at the moment, and we're on the verge of having like a comfortable 3-4-5-0 win, which is why I'm not too worried. With Havertz, look, I'll give him as much time as I possibly can, obviously, and I'll defend him as much as I can. But I do think Fabio Vieira is knocking on the door at this point, who himself obviously had a difficult start last season, so he knows what it's like for Havertz. And then other than that, I'd say, the defence probably needs... I felt Ben White was not shaky, but looked like he'd forgotten some of those things that he'd learned playing at right back last season, which hopefully he'll come back with by playing there more. And I think, look, we've got Everton next game, which is a nice way to come back from the international break, I think. So it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Fabio Vieira thing I find really, really interesting because he's somebody that, again, Arteta's detractors, there's been a narrative that's been going around for a while now from them around. I've always felt like I think about 70% of the signings you've made have all pretty much worked. That's including all of them. And when you look at the signings that cost, say, more than sort of 15-20 million pounds, I think it's almost at nearly 100% rate of kind of paid off or done well, as an example. And one that's always been thrown in as someone else who's flopped has been Vieira. And I try my best to treat rival play. I'll criticize him in the moment, but I try to I try to treat rivals how I want my club to be treated, and that's very much like you've got to give him at least a year. And Fabio Vieira started this season like a freight train. Yep. What I like about him is, he's technically good. He's a decent player, but he's a GA machine. And I know people don't like the word GA, but when you're an attacker, GA is heavily important in your job. If you're a milkman, you have to deliver milk. If you don't, you're a pretty shit milkman. Do you know what I'm saying? And if you're a creator or a striker or a bit mixture of the two, if you ain't creating or you ain't scoring, I don't believe in this whole defensive midfielder or bringing others into play. That should be part of your job, and the GA should be there. And he's got it in abundance. He looks really, really good. What did people make? Oh, Don, this is a player that was linked to your club for a long time. What did you make of Declan Rice's performance yesterday?
Yeah, I think that was probably his best performance, really, in an Arsenal top. I think he played really well, man. Obviously, Partey is going to be out for the next few weeks. So, Rory, I'm guessing you want Declan Rice to carry on. It looks like it's been there for a long time. Do you get it? And that goal that he scored, it topped up his performance, man. I thought he was good. I thought he was really good.
Yeah, I did. Staffy the same. I mean, and that's hard when it's your own team, but he looked like £100 million player yesterday, Declan Rice.
I said it on my Twitter. I said I'm actually going to owe him an apology soon because, not gonna lie, I don't watch a lot of West Ham games. I've watched some of Declan Rice over the years, but not enough to analyze him, deeply like that, on every aspect of the game. But he looked very good yesterday. He was the best player on the pitch, in my opinion. He was definitely the best midfielder on the pitch, without a doubt. So for me to even say that I'm going to consider apologizing, not that I said anything crazy, I just didn't think he was good enough to do a lone six in the beginning of the season already. And I will hold my hand up and say that. I said, I think he'll struggle adapting into a lone six role from playing the six in West Ham to playing the six in Arsenal, because obviously your football is way more complicated, way more complex. It's more advanced. Whereas like in West Ham, he kind of sat back a little bit more, didn't have to be on the ball as much as he does now with Arsenal. So I think it was fair for me at the same time to give him, a little bit of doubt. But, he's proved me wrong. And, saying that United fans actually got onto me when I tweeted that. They said only because he scored a goal, which is another reason I tell you this fan base doesn't know football, because the guy clearly balled out and they took that as a disrespectful comment. But listen, he looked very good. I think now with Partey out being out for a while, that number 6 role is going to be his pretty much the whole season. I don't see anything changing. So if he continues to perform like this, I wouldn't say bargain of the season because you guys did spend a lot of money for him, but he's definitely going to be worth every penny that was paid for.
Yeah, looking at those again, the progression, whether it was him dribbling with the ball or whether it was his passing, was so good yesterday, and that's almost what I hope, because we saw it when they played against each other in that conference final. That's what I'm hoping Amrabat brings to us. Is, someone that can turn and run with the ball, win the ball and run it forward, or pass it. And Declan Rice, he was a player I didn't want to join Arsenal because I knew how good he would be. He's someone I've rated for a long time. There is, and we know there's a weird stigma in the football world, especially on football Twitter, with British players. I understand some do get overhyped. I've never felt like Declan Rice was one of them. I've always felt what hindered people's opinions in him is that you watched him play for Moyes and Southgate. You're not watching him play for a manager that wants to play expansive football. I think he has it in abundance. This is probably one of the biggest mistakes Chelsea's academy has ever made, letting him go. And in fact, they knew they made a mistake. Dean Jones knows that the Rice is quite well. And Chelsea have been basically trying to get him back from about after two and a half years after he left. They realized they made a mistake in allowing him to leave. He's such a good footballer. And look, I think with Arsenal, I think you've started the season a little bit stuttery. And I think that's the pressure of you have to deliver. But I think you have more points after 4 games than you had last year, because you got beat by us on the 4th game last season before the international break. So you've had 9 points, right?
That was 1 year ago today. Well, actually 1 year ago today.
I think that was a bit later. I think we won the first 4 last year.
I think we played them.
You did, and then Man United was your first loss. Yeah. United was your first loss.
Was it that game, Mark? Because I thought it was. I swear they said yesterday they were like it's like a year to the day that game happened, which I thought was interesting. Again,
it's because it was because the season started earlier last season.
We played them right after the deadline.
Played a few more.
Yeah,
we played them right after the deadline because Anthony
scored.
Yeah.
His debut, yeah.
But I do think, what Rory said, we started a week early, so it was 50.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. So maybe it's not as good a point start for you. But again, this kind of, we've got to remember that Arsenal's points total after 12 games last season was about 6 points ahead of City's average start under Guardiola. It was abnormally good. And I think that you guys are going to find your feet. I think you'll find your rhythm. I understand. Listen, and this is where fans, and I know we spoke about it earlier, Mount was bad for 2 games. Eriksen has to come in. I mean, he came in through necessity because of injury. Sometimes, though, and I've said this many times before, and I think we're not balanced as fans, sometimes you do need to say to someone, right, I'm going to give you 5 or 6 or 7 games, almost irrespective of performance, so you can try and relax and see what you do. And then maybe they get dropped. Because you have to manage players differently. I always remember a very famous story Wayne Rooney said, where Nani in the Man United team he hated being shouted at and criticised. But say he was making mistakes. What they realised to do as a coaching team, they would bollock Rooney or somebody like him for Nani's mistakes, but they would make sure Nani could hear it because they knew the message would get through, but you weren't embarrassing him in the dressing room and it would help his performances. So that as an example shows you that you can't treat every player the same in terms of your man management of them. You've got to do it in different ways. You treat everybody with the same respect, but you can't treat everybody. There's this, again, a modern day phenomenon. Everyone has to be treated the same. You can't treat everybody the same because everybody's different. All four of us on this stream might be motivated by a completely different thing. So therefore, if we're all managed by the same person, they can't treat us the same way. Like, go and do a management course, not to do with sport, and they teach you that. So look, I think Kai Havertz, I do think he needs to come out of the team, and Fabio needs to be given a chance. That isn't just because he's not quite delivering. It's also because Fabio hasn't thrown his toys out of his pram and gone, well, I'm not playing, so I'm not going to bother. He's chomping at the bit. You create meritocracy that way, and it's important. But it may not come after one game. But I honestly think that you guys are going to do well. Someone just said here there's a statement that's come out from Anthony.
Yep.
Here it says Anthony is being investigated by Greater Manchester Police after being accused of attacking his ex-girlfriend. It says here Greater Manchester Police is aware of the allegation made and inquiries remain ongoing to establish the circumstances surrounding this report. We will not be commenting any further. And look, I said it in my stream, my video earlier, to go watch it. There's reportedly pictures and video evidence of injuries. Again, there's no current suggestion there's any evidence that it was him that did that. I think it's got to be treated like all the other things. Man United have got to do their own investigation now and find out where they sit on this. It's horrendous that this is potentially happened to another person, another woman, first and foremost. United have got to deal with this one better, though. But again, until there's anything new now that comes out, I'm not going to say anything else.
He's released his own statement. I don't know if you've seen that.
Has he?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, he released his own statement.
Okay, I didn't see that one. I'm just trying to find that now. Okay, yeah, here it is.
On his Instagram.
Yeah, sorry, I just seen that one put out. Sorry. He has said, out of respect for my fans, friends, and family, I feel obligated to speak publicly about the false accusations that I have been a victim of. From the beginning, I have handled the issue seriously and with respect, providing the clarifications to police authorities. The police inquiry is under cover of justice, and therefore I cannot make its content public. However, I can say with confidence that the accusations are false and that the evidence already produced and more to be produced shows that I am innocent of the accusations made. My relationship with Mrs. Gabriella was tumultuous, with verbal offenses from both sides, but I have never practiced any physical aggression. Every time, whether in testimony or in interview, she presents a different version of accusations. Thus, I come to deny the accusations and made and inform them that I remain at full disposal with the Brazilian authorities to clarify what is needed. I trust the ongoing police investigation will reveal the truth about my innocence. I mean, and that is quite I wish Nobbins was here. He's a solicitor. That is quite a forthright note. Like, when others have happened in a similar way, it's been very much like, I'm cooperating with the police and we'll be in contact soon. Like, he's literally saying I'm innocent. Now, I'm not going to cast any aspersions either way. We just know what we know. There's pictures of cuts and bruises and everything else. That doesn't mean he did it. It's one of those things. There's supposedly voice notes of them shouting and arguing. Again, this will hit. This is all going to be handed in. But as I say, until more evidence comes out or it moves on, I'm not going to talk about it anymore because I don't think there's anything to really say because we don't know anything more than that. Thank you, Terry and Staffy, for being humble rival fans. Always. There's no point not being humble about it.
I'm always here for the truth, Pete. Don't worry. I'll say it when others won't. Not you, Terry.
Who will be better for Arsenal, Ozil or Odegaard?
Oh, Odegaard for sure.
Yeah, Odegaard.
I mean, Odegaard would never be. He's not going to be Ozil level, but he could have a better Arsenal career. Yeah,
he'll never hit the creative level of Ozil, but in terms of all-round game and what you need week in, week out as a Premier League player, he's got far more.
And also, the answer is for Arsenal, he'll probably, especially if he wins some more trophies, he'll be a greater Arsenal player than Ozil. Maybe not a greater player technically, and that's what matters. Anthony should do a reverse Bale, Saka, and go to left back. He's better at defending than attacking. Also, Don is world-class waffler with Chelsea convos. There we go. Thanks. I like that.
Yeah. Big yourself up.
Big up yourself, Rory, and the panel. Come on, you gooners. Knights of the Long Knives needed at United. T-Man. I don't know what that means. Thought someone might. Thought that was a reference I didn't get. How you play the role in a system over technical ability.
All right, bring back McFred then. Fred did
Well, no, because they didn't play their role very well either. Like, do you know what I mean?
They did. We finished second with McFred. What are you saying?
But by the way, that's so true. How you perform in a system, and I think people overestimate. Oh, back in the day, there was less systems. No, there bloody wasn't. It just wasn't spoken about in the same way. Like low blocks aren't new. We just used to call it sitting back. It's what it is. You know what I mean? It's transitions. Everyone says transition. Yeah, we just used to call it a counter, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they've always been around. They've always been around. Havertz, Werner, Sancho all looked elite in the Bundesliga. Now look terrible. If you don't have dynamism, you need to be elite technically. None of them are. Interesting.
I think Werner just lacked confidence. I always rated him as a player. I think he just lacked so much confidence. He would do everything right, but put the ball in the back of the net, in my opinion. He did so much well for them, but he just didn't get the goals.
I hear you.
Dan would agree.
Manny says, Terry, I can't lie. It's getting impossible to defend Kai. Then don't. Just say what you think and be honest. Like
I'm not even going to comment on him. They'll say I'm obsessed. So
you're obsessed. Congrats on breaking. Do you know what's really annoying? Thank you for. Yeah, we did break record yesterday. 309,000 people watched our stream. The bit that impressed me the most was that average view time. Our average view time, it was an hour and a half show. Our average view time was like 1 hour and 6 minutes, which is ridiculously long for a YouTube video. Like, I mean, this is pretty good. This show normally does about 45, 50 minutes, but hour and 6 minutes is crazy. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. The biggest match reaction we've ever had. Just a shame it had to be for it. I think it would have been that big if either team won at the end. I was just so gutted on my team. But thank you. I appreciate the love. The difference is Arteta has proper backing.
I think they put that when we were talking about the Ten Hag Sancho situation compared to Arteta with Aubameyang.
Yeah, no, 100%. And this is where I think I was in a space today. We were talking about backing. And backing isn't just giving us £400 million into 350 million in 2 years. Backing is getting rid of the players the manager doesn't want, letting him discipline the people that he wants. And the one thing that's we spoke about this backstage, I think, there's something that's become a weird phenomenon in football. If you make a mistake and sign a dud, it's almost like fans want you to be held so accountable that you either get sacked or can't rectify that mistake by buying somebody else. It's weird. Like, I want my manager out because he bought 2 bad players out of 10. Well, why don't you just let him replace those 2 bad players with better ones? And I kind of get if all their signings are bad, you don't have faith. But yeah, it's kind of a weird one.
We signed Sebastian Veron, who was one of the best midfielders in the world. Didn't have a good season with United. I think, what was it? Was it 1 or 2 seasons, Harry?
Couple. I think he had a couple and then went Chelsea, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have a good career at United. And then we sold him to Chelsea. And does anyone remember that about Sir Alex? No, he had a lot of duds.
Well, so we went from Veron to Jemba to Liam Miller, and then eventually ended up at Michael Carrick to be the longer term. We were trying to bring someone in to replace Keane. Wow. It went on for ages. And it went on for ages. And this is the thing. I know Fergie had more credit in the bank. So some will say that's a false equivalence, and I understand it. But people keep saying people have got to be held accountable. What does that even mean? Because if you sack everybody for a dud signing, losing that final, not winning this, or a combination of, it means everyone gets sacked all the fucking time. And it's again, when you deep it and you expand it across football, it's unsustainable.
Which is why we keep highlighting just to go on that. This is why when we sit here and we highlight the owners, people will just want to laugh at us like, oh, they're always using the Glazers as a scapegoat. No, it is the facts. When we sit here and we tell you that managers will get proper backing. By the way, this is why I didn't say anything bad about Ten Hag in this situation. I didn't even say Ten Hag out. I'm saying if he didn't like a player, regardless of how I feel about that player should have been gone. But we are not that club that operates where the manager is first. If there's a player that he doesn't want, we'll get rid of him right away and we'll get him the players that he wants. We say this. We've seen the same thing with Mourinho when he didn't want Pogba or Martial, and we kept him against his will. So once again, another player that, listen, he's not rated. We don't clear out the players that the manager doesn't want. We don't get the proper backing. They think it's just spending. The proper backing is having the players that he wants, having a director of football to help him with recruiting the right players, having a correct organization where we're not putting players on 350K a week and then we can't get rid of them, or people like Maguire who still owe, the clubs owe them like, 6 million or whatever, and then we can't sell them. That's why we say Glazers out. We don't say it just because of the money. It's because of all this.
I totally agree. Watching from my tent in Cornwall. Love you guys. Great show. Come on, you gooners. I like that. Chelsea will see a decade of failure. Mark my words. Well, they're already like 3 years into it. So hear you, David. I still believe Poch will turn Chelsea around. Give him time to get there. Thank you for that chat. This says, who here believes Arsenal will win the league this year and why? Does anybody here believe that?
Nah, City's too strong.
City are winning, man.
Yeah, I hear that. We're not going to do the predictions today because we are beyond out of time. We're well over time, and we'll maybe do it nearer the Premier League re-kicking off again because we just got involved in debates today. We've been here nearly 2.5 hours, and I'm hungry. I think everyone's tired. Listen, I want to thank the viewers. You lot. I always
have one more
say,
super chat there. There's one.
Sorry,
more.
there's one more.
Yeah, Jason Martin.
Jason,
I think you've done it.
Why
He's
haven't I
done
seen
it.
that?
It's showing on the screen. That's why.
I think have we done that one?
Okay, my bad, man.
Yeah,
I thought he
wrong
sent
chat,
it
yeah.
lit, and I know you.
No. That's the guy and he's in his tent in Cornwall. But yes, look, I thank the viewers. You're the most important part of the football terrace. You truly are. So thank you very much for tuning in. Please hit like buttons before you leave. Rory, Staffy, Don, always a pleasure to talk football with you. And of course, Hannah, who else was on? Tom was on tonight. JJ was on. Nobbins was on as well. We had to shoot off. He'd had a bit of an emergency that came up. So thank you all very much. Remember to sign up to NordVPN. Links below. And listen, you want to work out how to get cheap sport and cheap football by masking your IP address. Give me a DM or watch the video back from earlier. Get signed up to NordVPN now. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. Peace.